I want to extend a hearty welcome to all of you for taking time to be with us. For the sake of time delay, we have cut short that video. We will play that during our tea time. Then you will get some idea about our university, since most of you are visiting for the first time. For this meeting, we have several experts from EU joining us, and we want to warmly welcome each and every one of you. And we are aware that you're also joining in time. So we would make sure that we do minute by minute program as much as possible without any delay. And locally here, I want to recognize the presence of Ms. Lena Thomas, the Director, Global Business Inroads and EU expert, who initiated the entire process, and glad that she is here. She will be addressing us. And to my right, we have Mr. Patrick Graham, EU expert, and he will also be taking time to share with us. We welcome you, sir. We have Mr. Madhavendra Singh, the CEO of Gujarat Maritime Cluster, and we want to welcome him in our midst. This is his first visit, but they are positioned at Gift City. And we also have Dr. Piyali Das from Terry. We want to recognize her presence and we welcome her. We also want to welcome Mr. Syed Yazdani, the group leader from International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology, and Mr. Martin, Public and Regulatory Affairs, Munzer Biolit GmbH, the only German I love to see today. Austria, okay. So please, you're most welcome in our midst. And along with me on the right side, we have all the directors of our PDEU schools and the deans, and our registrar, Professor Tarun Shah, is with us. We want to welcome. And on the same note, I will give 1 minute for my co-host, Professor Shanta Kumar. He wears two caps, both as Vice Chancellor of GNLU and also Director of GMU, to say hello and welcome all of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor.
Yeah. No, sir, you can. Yeah. Only once.
Sir, dear brother, Vice Chancellor, Dr. S. Sundar Manohar, Ms. Lena, Mr. Patrick, Dr. Piyali Das, Mr. Madhavendra Singh, and all the other distinguished guests who have assembled here. I take this wonderful opportunity to welcome each one of you to this dialogue, to this discussion. And it's the need of the hour. And I think during the course of our discussion, we will come across not only about the prospects, but also about various challenges, especially the implementation challenges that what we are facing today. Right, maybe during my address, I'll just briefly talk about the challenges that what we are currently facing with the fuel regulations in India. And thereafter, I think we can take it up. On behalf of Gujarat Maritime University and on behalf of Gujarat National Law University, I extend a hearty welcome to each one of you to this program. Thank you so
much. And to those who are joining online, if you can raise your hand in case you're not able to see the slides, we will be able to help you out. So with this, can you put it full screen, sir? Yeah. Okay. So yes. Thank you. Yeah, so today we have assembled here on a one-point agenda to talk about biofuels for maritime application. Therefore, it's a focused discussion. We will only discuss around this theme. Uh, now, yeah, this conclave is gaining significance mainly under the banner of G20 presidency that we have, and Atmanirbhar Bharat initiatives, and climate action that is spearheaded by our government. And also, there are two slogans on which we consider this more seriously. One on net zero declaration. Our Honorable Prime Minister has given a word that it would be realized by 2070. But more importantly, we are talking about decarbonizing the transport. So this is the banner under which we have gathered today. As you know, there are several renewable energy verticals that are coming up in a big way. This is not to replace, but to substitute and complement the fossil fuels, mainly coal and petroleum. Needless to say, there has been several initiatives by our Prime Minister and by the Gujarat government on solar, wind, mainly because we are in the western coast. And Kutch is one standalone example of how deep and wide we are plowing into this initiative. But today, the focus is about biomass. That's on the top right, because that is included in the 7 renewable verticals, but not been maximized because of some of the technology intricacies. So in this light, we want to look at the different scenarios. For future marine fuels, we are taking leaping of initiative to a pole vaulting, I should put it that way, because leapfrog initiatives are mostly on carbon fuels. We have looked at the use of LNG, we have used as LPG, then methanol, ethanol. But slowly we are going to carbon neutral. That's the left cartoon, this one. In carbon neutral, we are talking about biofuels, biomethane, synthetic methane, and SNG. Now we are going one step more. That is the third vertical here, that we are talking about zero carbon. This, as we are sitting here, this has evolved in the last 6 months only. Much of it has been spoken on ammonia and hydrogen. Now, I just want to put in place a few things for clarity for our discussions as well. We are talking, when we think about biofuel or biomass, we talk about the first generation biomass, the second generation, because that is prevalent, verified, scalable, and has been affected. Mostly coming from edible biomass are the first generation biofuels, the non-edible biomass coming from the second generation. But today we are sitting pretty tight on third generation, and what we need to reckon to, and those are open questions, is the fourth generation, where we play around with the DNA, playing with DNA, we're playing with the microorganisms and trying to affect a green bio. So when you think about the feedstock, for the first generation, it's mostly sugar crops, starch, oil crops, animal fat. When you go to second generation, lignocellulosic biomass, which mostly comes in the form of methanol, methane, biogas, and so on. Now, what is now becoming scalable is the microalgae and biodegradable waste. This is where there is a proportional effort that is being made. I just want to put in place that with another slide, why we are looking at this, and today, what is the charter for biomass? We are talking about the decreasing concentration of SOx and NOx, which has to happen. And how do we bring down SOx? The sulfur content of fuel permitted after 2020 is limited to this proportion of 0.10. I'm sure Professor Shantakumar will add more onto the litigation part of that story. And when we think about oil crops and lignocellulosic biomass and the corresponding processing and the fuel precursors that are there, this is all well understood. But what is important for now is to understand the feasibility of HVO, drop-in diesel, ethanol, and butanol, which has to be refined and taken for the third generation and fourth generation application. Now, these are the mandate on which we are looking at the third and fourth generation verticals. One, the SOx content. The second one is to reduce carbon dioxide. And the third one is to not only regulate, but also reduce CO2 emission based on the IMO regulation for a 50% reduction by 2050. Now, these are the numbers which are getting heavily struck to any technical guy, because we are talking about 2047, we're talking about 2050, we're talking about 2070, but all these are technology challenges. So one is about transcending from second generation biofuels to third and fourth generation. And alongside, we are also talking about desulfurization, decarbonization in perspective. One of the things, I'm sure there are going to be many who will talk more on the biofuels, but alongside with biofuels, we also need to plow or prepare ground for green ammonia. Why? Because there is a substantial reduction of SOx and CO2 and no particulate emission. Currently, the capability for green ammonia is 180 million tons, and future requirement will be 150, which can ably replace the biodiesel. And the good news about green ammonia is both availability and scalability are in perspective. You don't need to plow on new routes of technology. So this is one area that we need to concentrate along with biofuel. And the second one is methanol. And this is considered to be the marine fuel of today. Now, Mr. Patrick was already telling me that 10 ships in Europe are presently completely geared by methanol. And this is one. Stena Line is a ferry that is actually in operation. Why we are going for methanol as well? Because 99% reduction in SOx, NOx up to 60, and particulate matter up to 95%. Now, when it comes to methanol plant, there is a increasing advantage because you strike two mangoes in one stone, to put it simply, because carbon dioxide capture is one thing and sequestrating carbon dioxide is another thing, where decarbonization effort, anything that is taken will be plowed into methanol plant. Therefore, it becomes a sustainable solution. Not only that, methanol, as of now, as per the literature, it shows across Asia Minor, Europe, and in Middle East, there are 100 harbors which are already having storage capacity for methanol. Therefore, there is no need for infrastructure development. You're ready to go. And if we can maximize the production, this will be the order of the day. Now, coming to PDPU's preparedness, we have to tell you that we already have a Center for Biofuel and Bioenergy. It's almost 6 years old, thanks to Gujarat government, which invested into this. We have two proven technology, which is spearheaded by Professor Kachwaha, who is the center head. We have two prone hybrid models. One is ultrasound microwave coupled, and the other one is hydrodynamic stuff. I'm sure during the course of the day and tomorrow, you'll have a chance to visit this establishment and also discuss with that. Today, we have a very refined protocol for converting waste cooking oil into biodiesel, and it has been validated. Now, this has to be scaled up. We have a seed funding from Shell to the tune of 45 lakhs, and we are going for 100-liter production per day, which is the first approximation for scale up. Having said that, what we want to do, because the bioenergy, we want to have a preparedness, or we want to contribute more from the fourth generation perspective, where it couples the solar and wind harvested energy along with microorganisms for biofuels. This is something we have brilliance. I'm sorry, I have not rotated this slide. This is the slide. Okay. So from PDPU, we can vouch for the fourth generation initiatives, and this is where we are pretty strong. And I also want to tell, for the benefit of EU representatives here, we are not new to this EU-India collaboration. For the last 4 years, PDEU has served as a nodal agency in chartering a 45 crore or nearly $6 million initiative on water technology, and especially water recycling and water energy. This is again coupled with the solar, renewable energies, and through this we have even launched a center for wastewater treatment. This particular center and initiative is spearheaded by Dr. Mudgal, our faculty from mechanical engineering. I'm sure you will be able to interact with him. These are the partners who are collaborating from from India and as well as from EU. And we will be able to discuss about this more later. So I just wanted to give you some idea about our preparedness in involving in EU-India initiative. And these are demonstrated projects which are in the portals of PDEU. And tomorrow and late in the evening, we plan to give you a tour. So with this, I want to stop giving you a glimpse of where the technology is going, what is the demand, and where PDEU is placed as of now. I request now Professor Shantakumar to give his views, especially on the development of talents for green ports. We can take the questions later since we are catching up with time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Sundar Manohar. At the outset, I wish to place on record the need for setting up of Gujarat Maritime University. This is the second maritime university in India. The first one is the Indian Maritime University, which is set up by the Government of India at Chennai. And they were only focusing on the technical side of the maritime sector. So the management and the commercial, the legal, operational sides were not taken care by the Indian Maritime University. And the Honorable Prime Minister felt that Gujarat should take a lead in setting up a new maritime university in the state of Gujarat, which will take care of the commercial, managerial, and the operational sides, the legal sides of legal aspects of the port sector. So that was the reason why Gujarat Maritime University was created. And of course, we do not have any technical departments like what PDPU is having. And that is why we felt that because PDPU is already there, so we are thinking in the line of creating a consortium instead of each university repeating the same thing what others are doing. That is why Professor Manoharan stopped establishing a school of law last year. Because already we have a national law university just across the road. So he felt that there is no need for a law university. So he is focusing on the technical side, and we are focusing on the law, the managerial aspects of ports, shipping, logistics, and other things. So that is the reason. And now coming to this fuel thing, in fact, for the last 3 to 4 years, since 2020, when the IMO came out with the new sulfur regulation, the IMO 2020 sulfur regulation. So the IMO sulfur regulation was one of the key focus areas for Gujarat Maritime University, and we have been researching on the operational challenges because we have been meeting all the stakeholders. The problem is the regulation came into force from 1st January 2020. And unfortunately, the petroleum sector in India was not prepared. In fact, the sulfur content, sir, that what you have presented in your slide, that is the present level of sulfur used in the fuels in European Union. So they have a very stronger regulation on the use of sulfur. In India, the goal was to bring the sulfur level to 0.5 against the present level of 4%. So the maritime fuels had 4% of sulfur, and which was supposed to be reduced to 0.5. Interestingly, one day Indian Oil Corporation was has taken the lead in setting up a refinery to manufacture the fuel which complies with the IMO 2020 sulfur regulation, and that too they did it on a pilot basis, and it's only in Gujarat. The rest of the country, the problem is the availability of this low sulfur fuel for the vessels which are reaching the ports and leaving the ports and thing. And the government of India, being a party to IMO, had accepted this obligation to implement this regulation, and therefore it had authorized the DG Shipping to take all legal action against those vessels which are not complying with the sulfur regulation. But then there are a lot of operational challenges, as I mentioned, because the regulation talks about one is the availability of 0.5% or less than that sulfur content fuel, which in fact, manufacturing and catering to the demand of maritime sector in India is a challenge, because the petroleum companies, they were not prepared to manufacture and supply. Because when we last interacted with the other petroleum companies, Indian Oil had set up a project in Gujarat. The rest of the India, they were not manufacturing it. Bharat Petroleum was talking with their other petroleum companies outside the country for transfer of technology, but still they have not commenced the production. And Bharat Petroleum, there was no initiation of any such thing. So this was the thing. And the problem is, now there was an alternative given in the sulfur regulation, that either you use this low sulfur diesel or you can have a scrubber. Now the problem is there are hardly 2 scrubber manufacturing industries in the country, in the whole world. And their maximum capacity is to manufacture only 650 scrubbers in a year. And how many vessels do you have, and how many vessels can buy these scrubbers? And it takes 3 years for the company to deliver a scrubber if you place order today. And until the 3 years, until they get the scrubber, again, you do not know what to do. And again, whether using scrubber will solve this problem? No, it doesn't solve the problem. It actually, instead of preventing, it only, what it does is it prevents sulfur from getting mixed with the atmospheric gas. But then the problem is, the scrubbers, it allows the sulfur to be mixed with the water and polluting the sea by this process. So these are some of the operational challenges that what we currently have. And I think biofuel will be a solution and an answer for all these problems. If, as presented by Professor Manoharan, if biofuel will have very less SOx, NOx, carbon dioxide emissions, I think that can be the best alternative. And only thing is, we need to look into the operational challenges, that whether our engines will be able to, the current engines which are being used in the ships. For example, that was one of the concerns raised by the ship owners in the stakeholders meeting. The ship owners said that the 0.5% sulfur, it reduces the viscosity of the diesel, which spoils the engine, and the engine gets into trouble very soon. So there were some technical issues. I'm not a technical person, so I could not understand. But then the concern is of the ship owner is that these low sulfur diesels actually affect the quality of the engine in a very, very fast time, and they could not afford to do this. One is they could not afford to buy a scrubber. because this number one, scrubber is not immediately available. Second is scrubber is very expensive proposition for the ship owners. Number three, scrubber also pollutes. Scrubber only, instead of preventing the sulfur oxide emissions into the air, it allows the sulfur dioxide, whatever it filters, it is let into the sea, therefore polluting the sea, and the water becomes acidic, sulfuric acid. So therefore, with all these challenges, we feel that this will be the best available option now. I think we need to promote, and that's what we were discussing with the Honorable Vice Chancellor of PDEU, that we will form a consortium of universities, with the PDEU taking the lead, and GMU and GNLU. Why GNLU? Because we have a Center for Aviation, Air and Space Law, where we also discuss our concerns about the emissions from the aviation sector, which is a major threat to the environment and contributing significantly to climate change. So that is why we thought that we will collaborate with the Air and Space Law Center of GNLU, with the Gujarat Maritime University Center for Environment, and also with the PDEU in working on this wonderful topic. This is need of the hour, and I think biofuel is going to definitely change. Only thing is, we need to have a very clear SOP by taking into account all the challenges, because whatever thing comes comes into use, I think we need to take care of all the stakeholders concerned. Not only, for example, in this interesting thing is the surveyors in the ports do not know how to measure the sulfur content in the diesel. They did not have any equipments. So how will they give clearance for the ship to sail through? Because they did not know how to check it. So all these issues, technical, human resource, all these issues, I think, will be addressed once we have a non-polluting fuel, so that we can blindly trust that, okay, this is a fuel used, and there is no possibility of emission of SOx or NOx or carbon dioxide. So therefore, we can have a clean environment. Because this is in fact, the world has covered more than 70% by water, the ocean. But unfortunately, we know very, very little about the oceans. 70% of the earth is water, but we know very, very little about it. And that is a very precious resource that we need to take care. And I think biofuel is the only option which is currently visible right now. And on behalf of Gujarat Maritime University and Gujarat National University, we will extend all possible support to you, sir, for any such activity that you will involve yourself and involve us also. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now I request Mrs. Lena Thomas, who is also moderator for the session, to take over and share her remarks.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Manoharan, for this warm welcome to PDEU. It's been an absolute pleasure since the morning to experience this ecosystem. And Dr. Shantakumar, thank you so much as well. I think from the first time we spoke, you were, forthcoming to want to collaborate and take things forward. But before I start, we have with us also joining remotely, Mr. Pierrick Filon-Ashida, who's the head of research and innovation delegation of the EU to India. He's actually very limited on time. So before I, go forward, I'd like to invite Pierrick to share his comments on the EU focus on advanced biofuels. Pierrick, can you hear us?
Yes. And can you hear me now?
Absolutely. Yes. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Lena, and all the colleagues in the room. Actually, it's quite nice because I'm speaking in third position, so everything has been said. I will tell you a little bit what we are doing at the EU and why we want to cooperate in India, with India. So I am head of research for the Indian embassy of the EU to India. And one of the first reasons, very clearly, we are a government. But we believe not only in road mapping, but putting it in practice, especially in a very acute need for an energy climate transition. So I was very, very pleased to listen to the colleagues of PDEU, Gujarat University. Very much welcome everything you have said. also that you host the meeting today. I also appreciate very much the government of Gujarat. Today is actually our third meeting, so I know most of you are on the table, even though I am now in Delhi. You are a different constituency. Just to tell you, we had a meeting last week in the context of Energy Week in Bangalore. We had a second meeting with the cluster on aviation, where we are engaging with the Ministry of Petroleum, with other stakeholders. And today is very complementary, more looking at maritime. So I want to thank you. I want also to thank you all the EU participants. Most of them are based from Europe, because in my role at the EU Embassy, I'm actively coordinating with the embassies of Europe here. But not only, I'm also linking. We had a meeting in Bangalore with US Embassy, with Brazil Embassy, because it's of international nature in the way we work in research. There is a global challenge. We have to solve it together. Especially, I will not go too long on how we work, but we have extremely well-funded program called Horizon Europe. So I'm coming from that perspective. I'm saying you people on the field, bringing European companies, Indian companies, labs, bringing universities, we must work together, and we are able to finance it on our side. Now we are linking with the Indian government for co-funding. So Patrick, Dr. Raisan will present some of the ideas later on. Also, the way we are coming from Europe is very different from India. Biofuel is still extremely controversial, especially when we speak about biomass, because most of the people don't necessarily understand that we are speaking about biomass, bio-waste. So you have to be sensitive to our view from Europe. We fully trust the capacity that India is developing, and that's why we want to cooperate with you precisely on this issue of biomass, bio-waste, and later on use for aviation, use for maritime. The third aspect is, I like the presentation just now by the colleague of Gujarat Maritime University, is what we can do together at the education level. I believe, and maybe Ms. Thomas and Patrick will mention, EU is quite famous for exchange of scientists between EU countries. We have, you might not know people in the room and people online, but the EU is well known for mobility schemes, one of which is called Erasmus for master students. Another one is called for PhD students, Marie Curie, and so on. So the EU has not only the capacity of putting together projects with India, but putting also fellowships. So I will encourage all the colleagues around the table to think about it, because if in the domain of biomass, biofuel, energy transition, we feel there is an acute opportunity to develop a curriculum or to link with some dedicated universities, we can link you via the existing scheme of Erasmus to universities in Europe that are precisely teaching the next generation of scientists, the next generation of business leaders on our domain. So don't think only about projects. This is my message on this. So in conclusion, I will just recap. We are coming from the world of financing and roadmap. So road mapping is something that we government do with government of India. Of course, there are many colleagues around the table that will be involved in this road mapping. But in parallel, we need projects. And we need very concrete proposals where we can co-finance. This is important. And the third aspect that I mentioned is don't think only on projects, think also in terms of education, master programs, bachelor programs, PhD programs, where we could help you. My last point is, and maybe Dr. Raisan will mention it later, we are thinking of having a wrap-up event probably in June, early June in Delhi, where it will be more government to government, but where we will take the ideas developed today and develop from today till June in order to push the governments on both sides to put money behind. We also in this process fully in Europe, in European Union, work with business. There are no walls in the way we structure research in Europe. We, right from the beginning, establish consortia, establish teams with companies, with universities, with labs, with NGOs. So think about it, and thank you very much. I hope I was not too long, but we have full support for what you are doing. I was last week in G20. We spoke about biofuel. We spoke about the Global Biofuel Alliance in the context of G20. So it just to tell you that your domain is, this domain is very important. It's part of the energy mix. But not only we need roadmaps, we need nice talks, but we need action. And thank you very much for all the support that you have given to Europe. Thank you. Back to you, Lina, in the room.
And doing half my job for what I was going to say, but really to introduce myself and Patrick here, the EU delegation represented by Pierrick, brought together two experts to really drive this vision that the EU has to work closely with the government, the public and private sector stakeholders to make this vision into a reality. So what we have been doing, really to give all of you an introduction, is since September, set up a small team to really, first of all, understand what is happening in Europe, and India, build a platform for exchange of ideas and B2B connects. And in that exercise, we have been to a few events. We have met many of you over the last, few months, just talking about and understanding what is the situation, on the ground, what are the areas in which Europe and India can collaborate. And last week, we, as Pierrick mentioned, we kind of did a touchdown on one of the pillars, which is aviation fuels, working closely with the Bangalore International Airport, the Delhi Airport, organizations like Airbus, etc. And what we are trying to do is look at the biofuel supply chain and where are the opportunities and challenges. And the question today is, there are biofuel suppliers, there are ships in need of them, there are airports, there are things, but the question is, there's not enough scale and it isn't really working. So the question is, everybody seems to be working in their silos. There's a lot of great work going on, but how are we going to stitch it all together? So one of the biggest challenges we have heard from the ground is that, there's not enough feedstock, for example. But if you talk to farmers, they're saying we have a lot of feedstock, but no one to aggregate and pick it up. And then if you talk to an oil company, they will say we don't have enough biofuel production. So everybody is actually ready, but they're not really talking to each other. So in Bangalore, for the first time, for the aviation sector, we said, let's bring everybody to the same room. So we had spoken to them, but they had not spoken to each other. So it was really nice to get everybody, right from farmer association organizations to biofuel producers to airport managers, airlines, to really talk about what they are willing to bring to the table. What are they willing to commit, and also what are the challenges that they are facing as well. So that so once so we did that there, and now over to planning for Gujarat. I must tell you about my experience. It all started with a conversation with Dr. Manoharan, and instantly I met a man who said, Lina, there is maybe not a lot going on in maritime biofuels, but I want to be at the helm of making this happen. And so that was, I think, a great, a spark to get us all going. We've had multiple conversations on the maritime side. What can be done? We have, it's great to have Mr. Madhavendra Singh as well here from the Gujarat Maritime Cluster, and Mr. Shantakumar, who all kind of propelled us in the direction of, organizing today this meeting, which is for the first time bringing together a few of the stakeholders that we've been talking to, on the ground. And hopefully, we will be able to take this into actual action in terms of really, over a period of time, creating that supply chain so that, the ports and the shipping companies has access to biofuels at all the ports, in India. So that's the vision we are working with. I think many of you, one of the things we also learned is that in August 22, DG Shipping under the, the Ministry of Port Shipping and Waterways of the Government of India, they released a circular as well on the use of biofuels and its blend on Indian flagged ships. So this is something that we were also, happy to see. And then also, Patrick will talk in a few minutes about mission innovation and the focus on biofuels and zero emission shipping. And I believe that the G20 is also planning a global biofuel alliance, like the International Solar Alliance as well. So I think a lot of activities are moving in the direction. It's a clear call to action now to, to organize feedstock suppliers, bring an opportunity to waste managers, farmers as well, and biofuel, entrepreneurs, who can actually supply this to oil companies who can then supply it to ships. So this is where we are, and with this short introduction, so that all of you can understand why we are called EU experts, and why we are all here to. It's a part of a journey, and many of you may not be aware of how all of this has come together. But with this background, I'm just going to pause, and we can then move on maybe to you, Patrick, to share your views on this program.
Ms. Thomas, I would like to take just 1 minute before Mr. Patrick comes in. We have some of our distinguished professors from GMU and GLU as well. I have not particularly known them, so I request Dr. Shantakumar to introduce them. The faculty from Raisan.
The faculty from Gujarat Maritime University, can I request all of you to please raise? Yeah.
That's
Similarly, we have faculty from Gujarat National Law University as well. Dr. Tyagi heads the Center for Aviation and Space Law. And Dr. Hina is there, and so she is also leading the Center for Air and Space Law. Thank you.
yeah.
And we have some of the student volunteers as well. Yes. Yeah.
Great.
Students. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, please. Yes, just.
So good afternoon. I have a couple of slides. It'd be nice if we could put them up. I don't have a copy in front of me, so I'm afraid I don't remember exactly what I wrote on the slides. But while we're waiting for the slides, my name is Patrick Crehan. I'm a management consultant. I used to be a scientist. Nowadays, I specialize in the management of research and innovation. And for many years, I've been focusing on the energy and climate transition. And worked in many sectors. And one of the things that has emerged is that it's not just about technologies. If we want to manage effectively a successful transition to a post-carbon world, we need not only technologies, we need innovative forms of finance. We also need economic models. And so the scope of innovation to scale up what we're doing goes way beyond technologies. And there are already many mature technologies which could be deployed, which are commercially viable, and which would succeed in providing quantities of sustainable biofuels already. And we should do this and get the fuel flowing all the way from the feedstock providers up to the consumers. And as we're going, we'll be able to improve the technologies. and make the transition from second to a mixture of second and third and fourth generation technologies in the years to come, all the way from now up until 2050. So I've been eating a lot of carrots recently, so I think I can just about read what's on the screen. What I want to do, first of all, is give you a little bit of context about the framework program. Now, Pierrick mentioned that it's quite a substantial program. We're talking about 100 billion euros available for research and innovation up until 2026. And then after that, there'll be another 100 or maybe 150 billion euros. So it's quite a big program. And yet it only corresponds to about 10, 15% of all that is spent on research in Europe. And each time the program is renewed, its mission evolves. And nowadays we refer to this as the impact program. And this is a response to the urgency of the big challenges that we face. 2050 sounds like a long way away, but actually there are many intermediate targets which are very challenging. And to reach those goals, such as carbon zero in 2050, we have targets to reach in 2025, 2030, 2040, and these are difficult goals. And so we cannot hang around. We have to start implementing solutions immediately and improve them as we go along. And so what has changed is that in the program, we used to emphasize scientific excellence. Now, it's still important because the challenges are demanding and we need excellent scientists working on them. But now we talk about impact. And also another way in which the thinking about programming has changed is that we've introduced the concept of the mission orientation, so that we define the high-level social and economic goals that we have to achieve, and we orient the research programs to achieve those goals. Now, it's important to know this because we're still very much, scientists are still very much driven by excellence. They're also driven by their own career needs in terms of publications, etc. And so this new emphasis on the mission is pushing people out of their comfort zone and forcing them to collaborate much more broadly than in the past. That means collaborate more than ever before with industry, accelerate the transfer of technology and its commercialization, and also collaborate with government and with citizens, local stakeholders, because government has a really important role to play in the transition, not only at central government level in terms of the strategy and the vision, but all the way down to local government that provides the incentives and the support to farmers, waste management at city level. All of these have to be brought along to have a true transformation of the system and to reach our goals. So in the vocabulary of programming, we talk about missions, we talk about destinations, etc. These words have a meaning, and when we formulate the project proposals and when they are evaluated, they're evaluated from the point of view of how does this project contribute to achieving targets in 2030, 2040? How does it contribute to the missions that we have set for ourselves? And of course, you need excellence to deliver on all of that. But excellence is not enough. The impact dimension is really important. And on this, I think we have something in common with India. I mean, one of the things that really impressed me about the Indian approach is the importance of the social dimension, the social agenda. And if you look at I look at the policy papers of Niti Aayog and organizations like this, they talk about the prosperity of farmers. We really see the energy transition as an opportunity to raise the whole of society. And farmers in Europe don't have an easy time. We have a lot of poverty amongst the farmers. They really are in a subsistence situation, and we hope that the biofuel industry and the carbon economy, carbon sequestration, will transform their livelihoods and improve rural societies and create many more jobs and entrepreneurial opportunities in the future. So when we talk about impact, it's not just about patents and new technologies and citations it's also about delivering on this social agenda. And so that's why I feel that there really is an opportunity for us to do great work together, because the Indian agenda is not purely industrial. It is industrial. It's very important, because without industry, things don't happen. But the social agenda is really important as well. So I've listed there the 5 missions. The first one is the climate mission, and it's very much about decarbonization. So in that there is decarbonization, but other missions refer to things like the soil mission. But that's related to the carbon economy as well. And if you produce renewable feedstocks from agricultural waste as a byproduct, you have compost and fertilizers of different qualities, and putting this back into the soil improves the soil. It's another opportunity for revenues from the farmers, etc. But it's just to say that the need for cooperation on biofuels is not just in the calls that say biofuels. It could be in soil. And in terms of innovation, it's not only new refinery technologies, it could be an innovative finance to make sure that the farmers have the money to organize the production of the feedstocks and get it to the refineries in the quantities and with the regularity that's needed. So there are, let's see now, at the very end of this, I'm straining to read what's on my Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So in terms of the financing, an important issue for the partnerships is to start talking early about, well, I wanted to mention the mission innovation, first of all, because we have these missions at EU level, but also at international level, because in sectors such as aviation and maritime transport, there is an international dimension. We talk about green corridors that go all the way from Rotterdam through the Mediterranean, all the way past the ports of India, all the way to Singapore. And all of the ports along the way must have renewable, sustainable biofuels so the ships can take it on. And in the hinterland of these ports, there's an opportunity to develop new business, etc., in the production of this. So the logic is not a national logic. The biofuel sector and aviation and maritime transport naturally has this international dimension. And this is why the mission innovation is so important. So when we talk about collaboration between the EU and India, it's really part of a bigger mission, which brings in Brazil and Japan and the US and all of the other big countries that are going to contribute to solving this problem, the decarbonization of maritime transport and aviation. And the programs that we have available to do this under the mission innovation, it's a coordination initiative where all the regions and countries, EU member states, the European Union, the research programs of the US and Japan and Brazil, etc., they coordinate their efforts and try to achieve a higher impact by working together. And they use their national programs. And so in the case of Europe, we have the programs of the member states, and we have the EU program. And with the member states programs, there are these bilateral initiatives between EU member states and Europe, and we'll hear about some of those later on. And we have the multilateral initiatives as well, which are complementary to them. They don't replace them. They're a complement, and they add value in other ways. So if I can have the other slide, please, while I just talk a little bit about the financing. So it's important to realize that the whole of the framework program called Horizon Europe is open to Indian partners. You can take part in any part of this with no restriction. The European partners get financed by the European Union, and also partners from what are called associated states. So these are countries that put money into the pot and help with financing the program. So they have access to this, and their partners get financed. In the case of India, I mean, now we consider India to be a technological powerhouse and on the same level as the EU and other advanced countries. And so India finances its own participation. But there's a slight difference between the Indian and the European approach under the framework program, and it's that Under the framework program, all of the partners, whether they are big companies, small companies, research institutes, cooperatives, individual researchers, they all get financed by the same funding mechanism. But on the Indian side, you have many agencies and many financing opportunities. So it means that if we want to put together a project, we have to pay attention to how the Indian partner is going to get financed. And there are many agencies involved in India. So the message to the European partners is, talk to your Indian partners to find out, are they clear on where the money will come from to finance their participation? And it's also a message to the Indian partners as well, is to have this in the back of your mind when you're working with Europeans, where are the resources going to come from? It is possible for some Indian partners to be funded, but it's quite exceptional. So usually the money must come from the Indian side. And if it can come from an agency, but sometimes the institutions, they have a lot of autonomy and they may be able to have a discretionary fund that they can use. And so in some of the projects I'm familiar with, some of the institutions have set aside part of this discretionary fund to spend on projects with European partners. But it's an important question to ask, and you should start having those conversations as early as possible. Now, although the program is open, very open, and Indian partners can take part in any aspect of this program, some of the calls are specific to biofuels. And one in particular, so I mentioned 3 of the calls there that are coming up, and the focus is on advanced biofuels for aviation and maritime transport, and also for integrated biorefinery concepts. So this is really about the circular economy. It's as much about the byproducts as it is about the fuel, etc. And this dimension is very important for the commercial viability of the system. So there is a call, the last call that's listed there. It's a call that will be opened in 2024. And we have an agreement with DBT already for the co-financing of this call. Now, it doesn't mean that the other calls cannot be financed in some way. It just means that we already have an agreement for this last call. For the other ones, we need to do some work and lobbying in the background to find out where the money will come from. But I will leave it there. I won't go into the details on these calls. This is a discussion among the scientists. And my main job in this task for the delegation is to write a roadmap for cooperation between the EU and India for the future on the biofuel issue. And so we're talking about the calls for research. Pierre mentioned the student exchanges, the staff exchanges under Erasmus. I cannot stress enough the importance of this, because if you have regular exchanges of staff, you really have a platform on which to build the projects for the futures. And people don't always think about it, but if you're sending staff, to Europe, whisper in their ear, bring back projects. When you're going there, it's not just to teach or do research. Talk to the heads of departments, tell them about what you can do, and make sure they understand that you have a role to play in future research projects so that they build you into the consortium. So I'll leave it there. Thank you for listening.
A quick comment on, no, can you leave that presentation open? Yeah. A quick comment. No, not. Yeah. As you see there, March 31st is the deadline for the topic which we are discussing today. That's on the biofuel for aviation and shipping.
Yes.
I would suggest Professor Kachua meet with the other faculty members from other institutions as well, see whether we can stitch a proposal for that. And there is one which is coming in this May 4th, next generation advanced biofuel technologies. That is little time. We can regroup. Yes. Since Dr. Mudgal has gone through the entire process of bringing 17 people and making it happen. I suggest you also help in stitching this proposal because we have very little time left out. And locally, I think we can integrate together all three plus maybe one more agencies, one or two more from Gujarat. It's better not to go pan-India because this needs too much of in-house cluster activity. So I leave it here, but I think during the dinner time, we will also discuss more about this opportunity. Please.
Sir, this opportunity we can get to avail that regarding that European partners, we can decide here itself. Yeah.
This is a good starting point, is contact the people you know in Europe and ask them, are they preparing something for the call? And then make sure they understand that the contribution you can make. Yeah. And also, if you can say that you have money as well for it, that's good, because sometimes people are nervous. They say if you don't have financing, it's unsure. But if you're able to say that, the money is there, you can get it, then that's very helpful as well. But we'll talk about this later on. Okay, we can sit together and discuss details later.
Sure, sir.
You can take care of this.
Yeah, thank you. Just to proceed now, I'd like to call upon Dr. Piyali Das, Senior Fellow and Area Convener, Advanced Biofuels Division of TERI, to speak about the National Center of Excellence in Green Port and Shipping. Okay, absolutely. Feel free. Yeah.
Mainly, I'll brief about this TERI Center of Excellence, about this green port and shipping, but a couple of other things, as I was asked, that where TERI's interest lies in with respect to the incoming calls, EU calls. So I will also mention about a couple of technologies. So just to, most of you know about TERI, but just to highlight this, that in TERI, we are a non-for-profit research organization, and we are having around 750 plus team of scientists, sociologists, economists, and engineers. So a couple of almost all kind of manpowers. So, and if we look at the program, it keeps reshuffling. So the green shipping I have highlighted because it is the newest program we have generated after we got this Center of Excellence. So our all work on advanced biofuel, which also having the transport fuel and also the aviation fuel, all those other work also everything has been clubbed in this program, green shipping program. But we are also having a lot of other programs, which is like sustainable infrastructure, climate and air, and any other interesting. So moving to the next one. This basically, before going to this Center of Excellence, so this Center of Excellence is an offshoot of this ongoing this collaboration with the Norwegian government, with Government of India. So this IMO Norway Green Voyage project, we are all aware of this project. So if you go to the next one, so just to keep it. So this project is supporting shipping transition to a low carbon future. And there are two kinds of countries so far has joined. There is a kind of countries which are actually, these are whom they are supporting for this transition. There are some selected developing countries. There are some developing small island states are there, and there is some underdeveloped countries also. So still it is, the number is very less. So India falls on this pioneer pilot countries. So already the difference with the new countries is there. So if you go to the next one, the difference is for India, we already have a maritime baseline emission data available. And National Action Plan to address the GHG for ships is already some primary targets are there. So with respect to the new pilot countries, so this will help green voyage programs to first assess their emission baseline and then developing the strategy how to go for their getting their national strategy emission reduction baseline. So for India, we are already having those baselines. So this green voyage program will support to finalize this NAP and also to identify pilot opportunities and secure funding for implementation. So our new center is actually has come out of this collaborations. So if you go to the next one, so this center has been put in it is housed, this center. It is the newest one. In November, we got this center. So under the Ministry of Port, Shipping and Waterways, and there are two ports like Deendayal Port Authority and Paradip from East, West, and two from East, Cochin Shipyard, and this has joined so far, but it is very open to for other ports to join for this program. So go to the next one. So if we look at that for India, as I said, that maritime is very important. I don't know, all experts are here, so I don't need to go to this, but just only one thing that we are having a coastline around 7517 kilometer, which is quite big. And we are having 12 major ports and around 200 non-major ports, out of which 44 are functional. So in that non-major ports, it is actually becoming steadily becoming more and more important with respect to this. So there will be a lot of focus on this. And as we know, this India's NDC already we're having a very aggressive kind of target, like 35% of emission cut by 2030. From 2005 level, and to achieve around 40% cumulative electric power. And already out of that, 24.5 RE already is there in the installed capacity. If we go, I'm just rushing through this. If you go to the next one. So we know that ports in India handle almost 95% of trade volume. So it's really become very important for India for this green transition. And this we know that 2015, India announced this Sagarmala program. Actually, this is an initiative to reduce the cost for international and domestic trade with minimal infrastructure investment. And in that, the target, or it is aimed to 60% share of the renewable, especially for the power demand in the major ports. At this moment, it is less than 10. So it's a very aspirational, we can see this target, and carbon emission by 30% by 2030. And also we all know about this maritime vision document, 10 years blueprint and all. So with all this and implementing IMO energy efficiency requirement, with this as a background, this this center has been established. So go to the next, I'll just move very fast. The major objective of this center is to provide support to the Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways in developing and maintaining basically the policy and regulatory framework for adaptation of green technology roadmap. That is the main target, and in shipping sector, and transition to carbon neutrality and circular economy principles. So there are 5 broad areas like policy, regulatory, research, which is the main focus. Then human resource development also, there's a big program under this. Network, key partners, strategic collaborators, and it is very open for collaboration with any other centers or ports, and even it is, if it is an international program, then we have to definitely get some approval from ministry, but it is very open, it seems, because for this. And then we can also engage past events, upcoming and dissemination, a lot of this. So these are the major 5 areas. If you go to the next one. So there are 3 areas, aspects actually. One is energy management, we can say. Another is the emission management, and third is the sustainable maritime operations. So it will act, this center will act as a technological arm to this Ministry of Petroleum, Ship and Waterways. And just going to the next one. So there are 10 projects which has been sanctioned, to kickstart this center. So this has already started this project. So I am one of those PI in the, especially for the 4th one, which is suitable biofuel for blending with conventional marine fuel. But if you see It's like, no, it is not only the biofuel, it's also about how we can have this, especially from the power demand that from the solar and wind. So it is like, no, from all these aspects. And three I have highlighted here, which will be major focus and which like, no, I also will be working very closely. So one is the blending of suitable biofuel identification and pilot projects on that. And second is like, no, sixth one, which is a develop regulatory framework for transportation of hydrogen up to 700 bar. And another one is the report on implementation of green fuel bunkering infrastructure in ports. So like, no, this 11 is very exhaustive, this one. If you go to the next one. So like, for example, I have taken this one, I think for the biofuel one, that was the third. So there are, it falls under this 10 projects, falls under, and we will be doing this 10 project within first 5 years. And then it will be definitely extended. So it is under 6 themes. If we see wind energy, biofuel, fuel cell for long haul shipping, hydrogen storage tank, green ports, and solar power. So under these themes, biofuel has only one project and hydrogen storage tank also project 5, but green ports are many projects. Like, no, these are very interconnected and all. So I don't have the more, I am not carrying the more details, but we can share those details of these projects. So if you go to the next one. So in the biofuel project, basically it is to identify suitable biofuel which can be blended with marine fuels and can be used with no modification in the existing marine. I understand when I was listening to my previous speakers, it's really a very lot of challenges are there today, but that's what we will look, and that's what that collaboration will really bring a lot of value. So like, no, in these projects, and it is both for coastal and inland water transport, and make a project proposal for constructing a vessel as a pilot project. Basically, it is that pilot project and implementation of that. And identification of best fuel, its supply chain, its regulation for Indian domestic use, and complete DPR. And who will be involved, who can be involved. That's what we said, that we are very open for collaborations and many other calls we can participate. That is the different biofuel producers, national, international. So then oil companies, ship owners, ship builders. I mean, we can go on like the next one. So under the green project here, we'll look, we'll study and prepare a DPR on technical feasibility of all these options we are talking about: hydrogen, ammonia, methanol, biodiesel. And it is not only for this feedstock sustainability and also, it is also about reception, storage, bunkering facilities, and what kind of total infrastructure, like cost and all those techno-economic analysis. So everything will be a part of this. So, and also we'll cover the logistic, operational, safety, risk management, availability. So it's a very, very aspirational, I can say at this moment. So if we go to the next one, and then I will talk about this basically for here from I'm showing this to show that interest in the 2024, that call of integrated biorefinery. So in 2018, there was a center was built in Terry DBT Center of Excellence on biofuels and biocommodity. So this was one of the first center where it was basically to see the techno-economic feasibility of a biorefinery based on marine algae. So that we have done, and in that it was a pilot project. So phase 1 we have successfully completed. So there are many products we have developed. So I have been mainly in the part of the biofuel, but there are many biocommodities. Like we got aquafeed product, which is already we got a lot of patents and this commercial interest in this product. Then we got different, we know that for algae, the major problem is it is 95% and more is water. So drying is one of the major energy intensive this thing. So here we got a wet lipid extraction process and very high efficiency of this process. And when we do that de-oiled algae, again through pyrolysis technology and other technology, we convert it to jet fuel. So then it becomes very economically viable. But at the end of the day, as I said, that there are many products, like we also developed technology like you have shown. So we have a technology on the ionic liquid based for used cooking oil, as well as our main target was to convert marine algal lipids to biodiesel and jet fuel. So for the biodiesel part, especially because the this free fatty acids is quite high for the marine lipids. So we have developed a ionic liquid, which is a very green kind of solvent. So there that process we have developed up to pilots, and all these products and processes making biochar out of this pyrolysis and getting pyrolysis oil, where we are again upgrading it to the jet fuel, then 2,3-butanediol from the glycerol, what we get in the biodiesel. Also, we got allyl alcohol and acrylic acid. We know that there is so much demand and India is a net importer. So those things we have developed up to pilot scale under this project. So for green allyl alcohol and acrylic acid. So, and we got now our next target, what we are working to get it to the 1 hectare scale of this. So, and because the results are very promising, economy is already showing that business viability. So we are now looking for this. So here we are very interested for the next call. I'll now run this is about that our marine algal thing. So I'll go very first. So if you go, this is about our those marine algal site in Bombay. So if you go next, so this is some of those so this is that wet algal extraction and this that from the marine algae. And when we convert, yeah, I'll just. It is a 100,000 liter scale. That was the first project. So based on this, all the products we have developed downstream, pilot scale. So we have done the techno-economic analysis, LCA, all these things based on the 1 hectare scale. So that already showing that it is very viable. I can say we know that the lipid cost is around 300 per liter. So in this, when we are going with this data based on the pilot scale with all this, if we go for a combination of this aquafeed and pyrolysis or aquafeed to that even biodiesel and then that glycerol to acrylic acids and all. So we are getting in that 1 hectare. So there even the lipid cost is coming around 25 to 30 liters. So which become very viable projects. So that's what we believe in this biofuel and biocommodity. I mean, some of these are biofuel may not be the main one. Maybe the biocommodity is the main one, but biofuel is a co-products. So that's we have done many products. I mean, also the pigment and other nutraceuticals and all these things. So even we are having collaboration with IIT Guwahati. There, this nanocrystals from cellulose nanocrystal from de-oiled algae has been developed for a biodegradable plastic. So there are already a lot of commercial interests are there. So there are a lot of products we have developed actually. So if you, I'll just move very fast now. So this is those setup for lipid, lipid extraction without dividing this dry lipid extraction. So which gave a lot of benefit and age over that drying process. And so if you go there, just go ahead. I'll just, this is some of this de-oiled algal meal. We have already patented this one. So, and it shows commercial fish feed substituted with de-oiled algae showed 80 to 180% more growth in 2 tested fish, katla and ruhi. And we also, with a Transtech, there is an energy partner, there is an industrial partner from Rajasthan. So they have mixed our this de-oiled algae with their cattle field, and it showed it shows the milk productivity and got high. So if you go to the next one. So this is that work which has been done in collaboration with us for this biodegradable plastics. So already there are a lot of interest on this plastics from the de-oiled. So it is only less than 5% of this de-oiled algae mixture in some of those combinations. It is making it biodegradable. So that is one of the major innovation in this. And as I said that once we make the biodiesel, that glycerol, 2,3-butanediol, allyl alcohol, these all can go for many products downstream. And also biohydrogen from de-oiled algae. So if you go down. So this is a little bit about this India's potential 1.3 million hectare coastal marginal land also there. Under this project, we are shortlisted where even large scale algal production can be done in future. So now go to the next one. This is a thermochemical biorefinery, which a lot of work we have done with the IOCL, and there what Patrick was mentioning was the biochar and all. So when we make this pyrolysis from different agro-residue, we have again the pilot project, which was supported for 3 phases from MNRE, from MOPNG. Now it is going on. So this all pyrolysis oil from different agro residues. We have used almost 12 kind of agro residue, mixed agro residues, and that quality of this today, that European standard, it is only European standard has come for pyrolysis oil for different application. So already it is complying those qualities. And one of the major advantage for India is that we can manipulate the conditions where we can get even activated carbon and lot of for the soil, as well as activated carbon and other non-combustion application as well. So these are the things we do in the thermochemical biorefinery work. So all this technology we have developed in the pilot scale with ministry support. So if you go next, so just before, so this is some of the other technologies, like as I said, bioplastic, biojet fuel, pyrolysis and all these things. So we are up to a scale where we really need to go for the upscaling. And I was mentioning about that Good Fuels and other companies, they're already making marine fuels and all this from the pyrolysis oil. So once we get that standard and that scale, and so we can we can collaborate and have many products, and that can start coming in Indian market, which is at this moment not there. So if you do the next, so anyway, I have already spoken about this. This is the thermochemical biorefinery where we can have biofuel, biochar and chemicals together. So there are a lot of options for the biomass based products. And if you go to the next, so I will just close here. These are the European standard for pyrolysis oil, and already those standards are all for commercial application. So there we can have a lot of collaborations. So if you go the next one, this is the Terry's work, and you can go, and I can actually close here. This shows that the pyrolysis technology in India still, it is only 1 or 2 groups are working, and in USA and even in Europe, it is quite commercial already. So, and it is also co-refining is looked at as a very viable option for refinery. So if you go, so I'll just stop here. This is our technology, which is a 20 kg per hour pyrolysis unit. So if you go, and these are the different products already in the pilot scale. Most of them in the pilot scale we have developed, and it is also been used by IOCL and all. So if you go the next, and this is the biochar application we are working. These are all pilot scale. So if you, and there are a lot of applications can come when we talk about the biomass based solution. So with this, I'll just stop because most of the technologies I have shown.
Yeah.
So this is the mainly will be.
Madam, you'll be staying tonight or you're leaving?
Staying tonight.
Okay, I think we can revisit
Yeah.
because too many technologies to assimilate. Definitely, there are a lot of overlaps also with some of the existing technologies. So, yeah, any of the faculty members who are here who could catch up on 1 or 2 that appealing to you, then we can discuss further during the dinner time and also after the discussion. One thing for the SLS faculty, ma'am was talking about the feedstock and then the farmers' perspective that there's nobody to collect and it's going rounds. Since we deploy around 2,000 students per year to connect with the farmers and rural enterprise, can this become a movement from our own people? Because for us, rural internship is mandatory and 1 full month is spent on the field. So we can try and see you can talk to ma'am about this. We can try and see if we can make some innovative stuff. I think I leave it to ma'am to take it to the next speaker.
Sure, I think that's a very important point, systems for creating a platform for aggregation of rural waste from the farmers, etc. That's a platform I think India definitely needs to bring. And if it can be done at a statewide level, where you engage with the students, collect it and supply it for the state ecosystem itself, I think that could be a good road ahead. So absolutely, and thank you, Dr. Piyali Das for I think it's very inspiring, and you're kind of anchoring India's Clean Ports program now from the way I see it. It's a great initiative, just started, but I think lots of opportunities for collaboration and organizations to work together. So thank you for all the calls to action that you shared. And now, I think let's move to one of the, I would say key actors, stakeholders on the ground, the Gujarat Maritime Cluster. I'm waiting, Mr. Madhavendra Singh, to hear all about it, the composition of your cluster, your activities, and your thoughts around maritime biofuel.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Respected Dr. Manoharan, distinguished guests from the EU, esteemed participants, both here and online. Ladies and gentlemen, very good afternoon. I'm very happy to be here. And I really thank PDEU for the opportunity to be able to come here and speak with you about the exciting opportunities that lie ahead for the maritime industry as far as the biofuels go. Before I begin, I would also like to acknowledge the presence of two important stakeholders. I mean, both of them actually sit at the two ends of the spectrum. One is who's producing biofuels, I think Munzer. And another one is the Maya Shipping. I think Yash, who is there, who's the end consumer, who's into production of yard crafts and tugs. Probably he should be the first one to start using biofuels now.
Who is the other stakeholder?
He's busy on his phone, I guess.
Okay, he's there. Okay.
No, having said that, also I would like to thank the organizers. So as far as the maritime cluster is concerned, I think this is a very thoughtful and a meaningful first step towards ease of doing business is concerned. And if we see historically all the evolved economies of the world, the maritime clusters have emerged as the economic gateways to those countries. And as a single point contact for connecting all the stakeholders in this spectrum, I feel very proud that government of Gujarat has and the government Gujarat Maritime Board has actually thought of a thing like a cluster, and we are based out of the gift city. So first agenda is also to promote all our Indians who have gone abroad looking for better opportunities and the policy and regulations and the conducive processes, and have taken a lot of foreign exchange with them. So we are trying to bring them back by providing them good opportunities, conducive policy frameworks, and also the conducive environment and an ecosystem so that they can come and work out of GIFT IFSC, which is providing a lot of tax and other benefits, which we can talk about separately. So as far as the collaboration goes in the shipping industry, so I have two things. One, I would also like to speak about not just the collaboration in the industry stakeholders, but also how India and EU can collaborate. I think they have already talked a lot about it, but I see that as one of the third largest producers of biofuel in the world after US and Brazil, EU has a lot to teach us and guide us in our roadmap to becoming net zero by 2070. IMO also is working on its 50-50 project that is bringing down the emissions by 50% by 2050. And as we move ahead on that road path, I'm sure we would be faced with a lot of challenges. One very insignificant one being just when we brought down the sulfur regulations to 0.5%, like Dr. Shantakumar was talking about, we didn't know how to retrofit our engines. Because even the containers, I mean, the storage tanks, the injectors and the engine pumps would not work. Viscosity went down and the wear and tear started to accelerate. So people realize that it's not a cost benefiting kind of a proposition. So in that sense, whenever we're thinking about the new technologies and the processes, we must also think about the complete supply chain, value chain system from end to end, whether it is feasible, sustainable, renewable, green. So I think that's what the whole spectrum looks like. And we should also be very, very importantly, any industry which is working today must also in earnest think about the ESG considerations, which is environmental, social, and the governance factors which come around whenever we are starting with any kind of a new industry or talking about any kind of a futuristic models. So talking about the India-EU participation, I think first thing that I look at is going to be the policy advocacy, because having served in the Ministry of External Affairs, I know that we have multiple bilateral and multilateral forums where we're talking about such things. And I was looking at the Gulf and the Middle East. So we try and work out not only in the maritime, but also in the green energy space, sustainable, renewable sides of the green energy. And in fact, one of them was India had come up with the ISA, that is the Solar Alliance, something like Ms. Thomas was talking about. I didn't know that we are also trying to create something like a biofuels alliance, which would be, I think, a game changer for all of us. But in this forums, we should, actually speaking, biofuels is not something which we are hearing very new. Although I'll acknowledge it very honestly that I don't have a deep understanding of the biofuels, and Dr. Das's presentation was actually very overwhelming for me, because I did not really understand a lot of terminologies, but I do understand and know how as an industry we can basically make the biofuels a success story. So when it comes to policy advocacy, EU has done a lot of work, and its biofuel is an ancient fuel. And whenever there is a distress in the world, I see biofuels being talked about, because it creates energy storages, which can be produced in your own country. You don't have to rely on the imports. And for a country like India, of course, it gives us the energy security. But there are concerns. The first concern is the balance between the energy security and the food security, because cultivation of these kind of feedstocks, utilization of water, the land use policies, the land reuse policies, the changes that it brings about by cultivating these kind of feedstocks, the problems the farmers face, the whole ecosystem where they don't get paid their value for whatever amount of efforts and the resources they're putting in. The use of fertilizers can all actually create an ecosystem which is not working in our favor. We can talk as much we want, but unless we weed out these problems, we will have to have a relook at all times, because we will not be working on a successful model. So before we start working on this, ESG considerations and these small teething issues must be resolved as we move ahead, or can be integrated into our policy frameworks. Second thing is the technology transfers. The technology, not only in terms of the equipment and the ships, but also the processes and how the whole fuel has to be made efficient and readily available for use. As far as India is concerned, I know that our policies have compliances for bringing about 20% blend in the ethanol, for the ethanol blend in a petrol, and probably 5% by 2030 for biodiesel also. So that's one industry I see is emerging, which is already working on a fast track. And as far as the use of bioethanol is also concerned, I see it's mostly concentrated. 90%, we are producing 2% the whole segment of the energy production, biofuels is only 2% in India. We are not too bad, because world is also 3%. But the 90% of this 2% is only going into the road transport. Maritime, I don't know, probably was it not a feasible option to migrate to biofuels, but we would study that as we move ahead. And then, of course, the government of India has provided 100% FDI in the biofuel sector. And I see that government is also coming up with the PPP models where they are providing for viability gap fundings for these kind of projects, which are very, very positive step as far as the biofuels go. And I think we should all utilize it, and people, the international agencies and organizations which have knowledge and the expertise in this field should come and establish the profit-making business propositions in India, and actually integrate the whole Indian ecosystem and try to, for collective prosperity of all of us, I guess. So I think EU can do that, because they have the expertise and the knowledge, and they have worked on this for a very long time. And of course, then how to improve the whole supply chain. Like I said, starting from the producers, and then the people who are going to store it, storage, the transportation, and then the end use also, the people who are going to use it, how are they going to use it, what is going to be the method that they're going to change. And we must also understand that as though we talk about the main moot point of our discussions today is biofuels, but biofuels is not the only thing that world is looking at. It just, I would say, is an interim measure to completely migrating to more renewable and efficient fuels like green ammonia and hydrogen, maybe nuclear, solar, wind, tidal. So it's actually, they are not mutually exclusive, I would say, though we should continue working on our biofuels, but we should also know that how to integrate this with other sources of energy. Because if we work in isolation, we completely make a ecosystem which works only on biofuel. The future migration and integration should not be a problem. So that's one concern, that as we start today, we should also be keeping that in mind as research organizations or the people who are working on the futuristic technologies. The most importantly, the collaboration we can have is in the research and development. And when I say research and development, it's not just coming up with, the research peer-reviewed papers and journals and periodicals, but to have some kind of applied research where we develop systems and equipment blends that work best for our maritime sector, which can readily go into, what kind of engines should be there that can work on multiple fuels, or what kind of the complete chain, the propulsion chain of the ships is going to look like, and which is also can be retrofitted to another source very quickly in time. And now coming to the industry, another 5 points for the industry as well. So when the industry has to collaborate, there are 5 sectors that one has to collaborate with. So the shipping industry collaborates with the producers, of course, the ports and port authorities, the government, the industry as a whole, and the academia, of course, for research and development. So when we talk about the producers, of course, the research must also go in that what kind of sustainable feedstocks that we can grow, and then what kind of storage facilities can be provided so that people can do it in a very most cost-effective manner, and what kind of efficient fuels can be produced. Ports, of course, the ports, even the private and the government ports must come up with policies and priority port service provisioning for the ships that are running on biofuels. I have with me a document, probably I'm sure all of you must be aware of this. This is IEA Bioenergy Task 39, which India has joined in 2019. And this is called as the implementation agenda. This is 3 years, once in 3 years meeting. So this is for 2019-21. It's got an India chapter, which talks in detail about the whole biofuel journey of India. It's a beautiful piece of paper. I unfortunately got hold of it today. I couldn't read through it, but I would suggest if anybody who has not seen it may just get their hands on this. And there's table 8.2, which brings about 12 line ministries which have been tasked just to make sure the biofuel sector is a success story. It starts with the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, which is, of course, the main line ministry for this. It has the Ministry of Rural Development, which would work on the feedstock planting and supply chain activities. It has the Department of Agriculture and Cooperation in the Ministry of Agriculture, and it talks about the plant materials through nurseries and planting feedstocks. Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Science and Technology, Road Transport and Highways, of course, they will also encourage consumption. Then the Consumer Affairs, Heavy Industries, Renewable Energy, Housing and Urban Alleviation, Ministry of Commerce, Consumer Affairs. These are the 12 land ministries which are tasked with this. What I'm saying all in all is that the whole government is working with a clear intention of making biofuels sustainable as a energy source for the future. So there is no looking back on this. If whatever incentives, the policy frameworks and guidelines that are going to come are going to be sustainable. So anybody who is making an investment in this sector can basically be confident that investments will not go bad, and that the return of investments is going to be very, very fruitful, and the whole mission is going to fructify. And most importantly, because we are at a nascent stage, the research and development is going to play a very, very important, I would say, use the word critical contribution to this whole sector. Because like I said, applied research would be more desirable, but whole supply chain research in every part of the supply chain is important. So having said that, as the industry's voice, and not just with the industry's voice, but as a common point connection between the government, the industry, the academia, I basically stand before you and urge you all to work together, consolidate our activities, and utilize the incentives which government is giving us, and positively work towards integrating the whole ecosystem, especially in the maritime space. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. That's It's a very helpful summary to get the background from your side, especially about the industry perspectives and learning about the different ministries. I mean, in fact, last week we were just talking about how we have to involve the Ministry of Rural Development, Ministry of Agriculture in this program. And so when was this document released?
2021.
Okay, they just talked about bringing all these ministries together for biofuels.
India, Ireland, I think 2 or 3 more countries will join the alliance only 2021, 2019.
Okay.
That's the task force 39, I guess. That's when they'll come out.
Oh, that's really good to know, and I'd love to get a list of because the idea is if something is already on the way, you might as well leverage and talk in that specific direction. So now I think you've all heard from different perspectives about this program. I just want to reach out for any questions and answers, any comments as well. Please.
This biofuel policy, which came in 2018, does not talk many things on the maritime sector. There is a, which Mr. Singh has touched upon, that the blending up to 20% has to be achieved by 2030. I have twofold questions to Dr. Das and Dr. Singh. Mr. Singh, is that where are we on the blending as far as the maritime sector is concerned? Because a lot of work has been happened, but probably the blending to 20% is a big question. Second, the policy also does not talk about the bio-CNG, although CNG is a part of maritime fuel, and there are papers on CNG being explored for maritime fuel, but bio-CNG, are we working on that field in the maritime sector?
Thank you, Dr. Sarkar. Thank you for your question. So, as far as the blending is concerned, in the maritime industry specifically, I believe 2022.
There was a modification.
Yes, you're right. That policy does not really cover, it does cover the aviation sector, but not the maritime. Maybe an oversight, or maybe a lack of representation. What I have read from the literature is around 4 to 8% we have been able to achieve so far as 2023 is concerned. We are looking at 20% till 2030. Yes. So I think there has to be transparency in the targets that we are achieving. I'm right now, as of date, I'm not sure, but what I've read in the literature is 4 to 8% that we have been able to achieve it. But I can cite some case studies to you that companies like Varun Shipping is one of the typical examples you can read about. They have made it compulsory, I mean, to have their ships, the whole fleet, working on the biofuel. And also the SCI is working, very target oriented manner. So if these are the case studies which are actually moving ahead of their time, and otherwise, at an average, I can say that the industry, because it's got problems with the retrofitting and overhauling. So what they're doing is they're bringing in the old ships, trying to convert them to biofuel. But let me tell you, I think that's also not a cost-effective means of doing it, because a new ship, retrofitting a ship would cost you 80% of the cost of the new ship. Why would anybody want to retrofit? They just wait out till the time the ships get, live their age. But now another focus of the international fora is that they're working on electric ships, and they are much more convenient ways of propulsion, and then they can produce electricity while at sea as well. And then they can store with the invention of the hydrogen fuel cells. There are possibilities where ships are completely on electric propulsion. And when we come to bio-CNG, of course, we are talking ahead of our times. That's fourth generation biofuel that we're talking about. I think we are at stage of second generation and third generation. Probably research papers are already about the bio-CNG. But I'm sure in 5 years from now, we would also start hearing about application of biofuels, the combination of bio-CNG also.
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
Yeah, my name is
Sorry,
Dr. Sharma.
Dr. Das has a comment to make.
No,
Yeah.
let him say. Yes,
Yeah, could
yes,
I
please
ask
go
a
ahead.
question?
Yes, please.
My name is Dr. Sharma. Currently, our total supply of bioethanol is 400 crore liters, which suffice for 10% of blend. Now, to reach 20% of blend, because it's about 75 years, we have been able to reach 10% of blend. To reach 20% of blend, I mean, I don't know, I mean, where we are going to get it from, and what efforts are we going to make to reach 20% blend. So that's one part. On the marine side of biofuels, we don't need any marine facilities for the biofuels because it is to be domestically produced, as also it is to be domestically supplied to the refineries for the blend. So the marine kind of facilities, what's required for transportation of biofuels is not really required, because either we could have a road transport or the rail transport for the biofuels from refinery, I mean, from biofuel production point at the sugar mills or the distilleries to the blending sites of depots of IOC, BPC, and HPC. So marine facilities, to my mind, are not much required for the biofuel blending at all. Thank you.
So I just want to add what you said, one or 2 points. So, you know, like with respect to biofuel application in India, so maritime things are coming at the end. Actually, now we started considering, it started with more with the ethanol programs, and it was the longest program you can say. Now, even this 20% thing, we keep debating even with the ministry till now. There are 2-3 different things I want to perspective I want to bring. We are all talking about these biofuels, but if we look about when we talk about this bio, in the sense we talk about the agro residues and all this. So do we really have, I mean, there are TIFAC data and all, and that data might be a little more hyped, and on ground actual data may be much less, or maybe when the aggregation will be proper, it might be better also. But you know, the kind of programs we have kept for the ethanol, for the road transport. So then how much biomass is left for the marine fuel? If we really sit down and put all the things on paper. Now, government is already, if we see all those latest, their policies and all, they are aggressively going for the 20%, and they want to prepone. I mean, I think we believe by 2023 or 25, 20% they want to achieve. So some of the questions I want to put forward, like, first of all, that even for the ethanol, there are many issues. There are a lot of data is coming, international fraternity, those data are coming, that even going for the 20% blending, there will be a lot of issues with the vapor pressure. There will be a lot of issues of the, because this is completely miscible with water, with the storage tanks and all. Today, we may not. Today, it is all about that, we are doing those estimation and all, but on ground, it is not so much to substantiate, but there are some very concerning results are coming. Is 20% ethanol the best way to blend for the transport fuel, or ether? Because if you see the whole Europe, it is more high RON, I mean, 95 and above is available, not less than that is available. If we look at all the, what we are looking towards those, the kind of qualities of the transport fuel we need and all. So there, even if we go for 20%, we may not achieve that kind of RON value. So is it the best for going for ethanol blending? And if we go for ether, there are many countries are taking, because from the pollution perspective, that is better. So ethanol and ether blending, that is the major things in the Europe. Now, in that case, one more conversion will be added from ethanol to ether. So that is still unresolved, those kind of, understanding. Second is, what I understand from all the interaction.
Dr. Das, maybe I'm just thinking we should take a bit of these longer discussions offline, because this is a very interesting point. And in the interest of time, because we also have some online speakers waiting, we should just proceed with the agenda. So if you don't mind, I just like to thank you for bringing my attention to that, but let's proceed and we can take this, post the
so
session.
I just one point I want to make, that we really have to be everybody talking about biofuel, but the feedstock, there is a lot of competition. So what is the best fuel, I mean, with respect to the efficiency, the use, emission factors, and the sustainability and all. So that we have to see. it is very easy to say that it can be for marine fuel also, but already there is but I understand for the transport fuel, government is going more for the molasses, like C molasses, B molasses and all, and grains, the grains and food grains. So that at this moment, the data shows that we'll be able to achieve with only those, even if we don't touch the agro residue, 20% can be achieved. That is one of the shortcut answer I should give. But still, there are a lot of issues we need to think about.
Yeah.
So,
Sure.
We will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
He's
Yeah.
already.
Yes,
connected.
great, fantastic. So Patrick, I'm just going to hand over to you to introduce our next speaker.
Yes.
Well, next speaker is Kees Quant. He's works for the Dutch government. He's a senior expert in biofuels, and he's very much involved in the mission innovation and cooperation between the Netherlands and India. So Kees, I think you have what, 10, 15 minutes? 10 minutes, Kees, if you can tell us what you're doing.
Yes, I will. So I'm trying to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much. I've been listening to the discussions that's going on, and it's very impressive the way you look, let's say, at this issue, and also how you look at the opportunities, because let's say biofuels in the maritime sector, it is part of a very big change that we are all looking for, and you really will make this possible. So in my presentation, I will discuss a little bit how in the Netherlands we integrate aviation and maritime fuels into the overall renewable energy. And I will also discuss with you how we support this internationally through the international collaboration like the IEA Bioenergy, but also mission innovation, where I collaborate with the DBT in New Delhi. So looking at the Netherlands,
can you,
yes.
Presentation is not in full screen mode. Can you?
Oh, yes, I will do. Is it now in full screen mode?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you. So the Netherlands, we are a small country, let's say in the somewhat northern western part of Europe. And we have a very big port. It's in Rotterdam. It's a kind of gateway to Europe. And this really helps us, let's say, to look into sustainability. And this is also important because when you look on the right-hand side to our map, the purple area is the area that will be flooded when seawater rises and our dikes are no longer able to stop all the water. So climate change is very important for us. So we have a target of reducing greenhouse gas emissions in 2030 already by 50%, like we also do that in Europe. So it's very important for us to make this all happen. And we are looking at renewable energy already for a long time. And there is an increase in renewable energy. It is wind, it is solar, but as you can see, the green part, it's also the biomass. And actually, at this moment, biomass is about half of our renewable energy, but in the future, it will be less. Yes, because wind and solar are growing very fast. When we look at bioenergy, we look at it in an integrated way. So all the resources have to be used. It's the waste that we have. It is the manure and the wet organic waste to produce the biogas. It's also co-firing in coal-fired power plants to replace the coal. And of course, it's also the biofuel production in all its different markets. And as it was just told, we have started with that in the car sector. And the main reason for this is that on a European level, we have the directive from 2009, let's say, asking for renewable fuels in our car sector, because it always has been difficult to determine how to, let's say, instruct aviation sector and maritime sector and how to oblige them to use the renewable fuels in their sector. Because when you have a plane, where will it be loaded? Or when you have a ship, where will it be loaded? And when they don't get loaded in the Rotterdam harbor, they might do it in another country where they can do it without renewables. So we have to need an integrated system to make this happen. So we're looking at this, and I will tell you a little bit about how we implemented the renewable energy directives in the Netherlands. And from there, I will go to the mission innovation that we have. If you look at all the, let's say, the transport sector in Europe, you can see that on the left-hand side, in the green, you have all the, let's say, fuels needed for road transport. And you can see on the right-hand side, we have Malta, and the second from the right is the Netherlands. So in our country, the fuels needed for road, it is about the same as what we need for the maritime sector and the aviation sector. So it shows that this maritime sector is very important for us, but also aviation next to the road sector. So for the road sector, we have implemented renewable energies, we have a policy, and all our cars are running on renewable fuels for a certain blending percentage. So we are, let's say, it's this blue part again. Now you can see it in a map where, let's say, this blue part, it's the Netherlands and Belgium. We are important. Well, let's say shipping is important, but also in other countries, it is also important, maybe somewhat less. Looking at, let's say, targets, for example, for aviation, we are looking at integrating the green deal that we have ahead, the refuel targets, and we also have the Netherlands target. And basically, we want to be green. Yes, so for that reason, we have agreed that in the Netherlands, there will be even more synthetic fuels in aviation than what Europe asks us to do. And this will be done by advanced biofuels. So that's the biofuels produced from waste materials, but also the synthetic aviation fuels that will come up also slowly in the future. So there will be a huge change, and in the year 2050, we hope to achieve a 60% replacement of the fossil fuels. 14% is the target that we have in the year 2030. But this really takes time. It needs legislation. And you also have to very carefully, you also have to look when you implement these legislations, who do you want to, let's say, who should, let's say, who is responsible for making this happen? So, for example, for the transport sector on the road, we have made the suppliers of the fuels responsible. So through our tax offices, we also have a measurement system so that we can, let's say, control our fuel suppliers like the Shells, the Exxons, and so on. For shipping and also for aviation, we have to look carefully who should be obliged to blend a certain percentage of renewable fuels. So, for example, for aviation, it can be the fuel that you supply to the airports, but it could also be the fuel that is loaded in a plane. And then, of course, we have a lot of planes coming from all over the world to our airport in Amsterdam. So they should then also load this fuel and also should pay for it. So there are a lot of questions that need to be organized to make, let's say, such an obligation on targets for fuels to make this happen. And we need a strong, let's say, collaboration globally, that we all do this in a similar way, because otherwise our airports, but also our ports for the fuels, they are, let's say, competing with each other. So all these issues, we have been looking at this, and I will not go into detail there here, but you can see that with the Green Deals, the Renewable Energy Directives, the EU Maritime Action, it's all influencing each other. And it needs a very careful, let's say, legislation to make it happen, but also to make it clear to the ports, but also to the maritime sector on what to do, so that they know how much they can be charged. So to summarize, for, let's say, aviation, we see that we have the CORSIA, we have the European ETS system and the CO2 cap that will all influence this market, and then it is implemented through the RED III and the refuel. And of course, we have our own national targets. And then, of course, we need innovation. We need better fuels, and we also need better engines. And And this can also be realized through either an obligation or a tax on fossil fuels or on transport. So all these things come together when we create this market for maritime fuels, but also for aviation fuels. So just looking at the shipping, it was already mentioned, good fuels are in Rotterdam Harbor, and actually this is a link. So when I will send you this presentation, so you can click on the link and you can see what this company Good Fuels is doing. They are already supplying maritime fuels to the shipping in Rotterdam, and this is, for example, one of the ships. It's let's say a cruise ship. They also want to profile themselves as a green ship. So this is the Aida Prima, and they are fueled with 140 million tons of biofuels. So these cruises are going around with green fuels, and here they are, let's say, bunkering in Rotterdam Harbor. We also have in the port of Rotterdam, I would say the port of Rotterdam, it's really a hub where a lot of biofuels are produced. We have Neste Oil. They are a producer of HVO. It's mainly for the road transport, but it can also be used in aviation. We also have the company Gidara. I will tell a little bit more later on. UPM from Finland is starting a biorefinery, and also Shell announced that they will start a company for the production of aviation fuels. So it all comes together in this change from let's say fossil fuels to renewable fuels to biofuels, but of course this can also be hydrogen and so on. So the port is a hub for the production and the logistics. Yes, and so here also is a link so you can see more what is happening there. And this is, for example, one example. It is Gidara looking at, let's say, and they are implementing now this technology at waste materials, separated, and then it is brought to a gasifier where they produce syngas. The CO2, it goes to our greenhouses because the plants grow faster when they have more CO2, and the syngas is then used to produce the renewable fuels. So this is for shipping, aviation, or the road transport. So this is technology that has been developed, and it is at this moment being, let's say, being presented and built in the port of Rotterdam. Now, Mission Innovation tries to support all these developments and also to, let's say, accelerate this development. So this mission integrated biorefineries is one of the mission of Mission Innovation. We are also looking there at zero emission shipping next to the net zero industry, but integrated biorefineries, it's the tool, it's the mechanism to make this all happen. So we developed these biorefineries with a consortium, and actually together with India, we are leading this consortium. It was launched last year, and I'm the mission director of this mission. We work with Brazil, Canada, and also with the UK and the European Commission. So we really try to make this all happen so that we can replace about 10% of fossil carbon by the year 2030. To replace them in an integrated way for fuels, but also for chemicals and materials from residues and waste. So, and I work here closely with Sangeeta Kastur from DBT in New Delhi. And we are looking at, let's say, at a complete picture. So we made a roadmap, and actually we have 3 pillars, because we say on the one hand side, we need research and development, new products. We have to improve our biorefineries, and it can be even thermal or it can be biological. But also we have to show pilots and demos. We have to showcase the results. And because for industry, and that's also what I hear also from Mr. Singh, you can only invest in it when you know that it works, that it is proven, and then this can become common business. But this is only a common business when there is a market, and the market really needs an enabling environment. So that's where, let's say, the government has to make clear lines, has to give a clear LCA and carbon accounting. So this all comes together. So from markets, when there is a market, pilots and demos can convince, and we need research and development to make it all happen. So up till now, I have seen excellent presentations. So it's very clear that in India, you are very, very strong on all these issues. The right discussion is there, and now we have to make the next steps. So in July, we will have a session from Mission Innovation in Goa. It will be in India, where all the ministers from Mission Innovation will meet. And so then when we are in Goa, I'm not far away from your place. So I hope I can visit also Gandhinagar then and see what kind of, let's say, integrated biorefineries can be developed in India and how you can also support this global development. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yeah. You mentioned that the European ships are, of course, for last 1 decade, European ships are using LSFO, that's 0.5% sulfur, 0.5% sulfur FO and LSHS for bunkering purposes and for propelling the ship turbines. But
hello, Mr. Sharma, can you mute yourself? We were just continuing with the session. Sorry, can you hear us? We will, if you don't mind, we'd like to just finish with the next 3 speakers and then we can open up for question and answer. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Pat.
Okay, thanks. Again, thanks, Kees. So we're going to have to move on to the next speakers. We have Matthew Hansen from Munzer, who's going to talk. So Matthew, tell us a little bit about yourself and your new technologies. The story of how Munzer came to India is very interesting. It involves an encounter with Modi during the OPEC in Vienna, I think in 2015.
Yeah, it was around 5 years ago. So our headquarters are in Vienna. So we are an Austrian company, and OPEC has their offices, their main headquarters in Vienna as well. And so there was an Indian delegation headed by the former oil minister and energy minister. And so they got to know our company, and they so we showed them around our plant. So we have a biodiesel plant and also a biogas plant in Vienna, and they were very keen on getting that technology to India. So basically, they invited Munzer to come to India, and so that's how we actually ended up in India. So we set up our first plant around 5 years ago in Maharashtra. Great. So I think we can straight move to the second slide. Thanks for the introduction, Patrick. It's an honor to be here and speaking to you. So we are Munzer. We are a family-owned and family-managed company. So it's 2 brothers at the head. And we are active in 3 continents. So as I said, thank you. Our headquarters are in Vienna. We have operations in Germany, in the Netherlands, not in the port of Rotterdam, but in the port of Amsterdam. We are active in India. That was our first place outside of Europe. But we also moved to Bangladesh, as you can see, and recently we also started operations in Kenya. So as you can see on the map, we are strategically located along the green corridor that the European Union and India wants to establish. We are further looking at expanding our activities to other countries. As of now, we are the largest used cooking oil collector in Austria and one of the largest biodiesel producers in Austria. In India, we are also focusing on UCO, exactly. And so this is our technology, the technologies we're using right now. So the first one is trans-esterification, which has the highest efficiency. So that's the one we are mostly putting most of our efforts on. It's mostly for road transportation, as you can see, as we have, excuse me. We have around 90% of CO2 reduction. Then in the second line, we have hydro. Thank you very much. So the second line, we have hydrogenation, which is going to shipping, maritime uses, and also agrarian uses. There we have 84% CO2 reduction. And the third one is hydrogenation and isomerization, which is going for SAF, for the air sector. And as we explained last weekend at the Bangalore airport, although we are currently running a pilot project with the largest air company in Germany, Lufthansa, when it comes to sustainable aviation fuel, outside of Europe and also in Europe, we are mostly focusing on road traffic and on the maritime sector. And especially in India, most of our efforts go towards the maritime sector, as we see a larger potential than in the air sector in terms of CO2 reduction. Yes, I think we can move on. Yeah. Yes, so this would be applicable to the first category. So when we're producing biodiesel for the road sector, we have more or less a 1-to-1 conversion rate from used cooking oil to biodiesel. And we have a saving of around 3 kilograms of CO2, which is quite significant. This we can skip. And yeah, so this is our plant in Mumbai, in Maharashtra. It was the first 100% waste-based biodiesel plant in Maharashtra. That's the one that we opened following the invitation of dear minister. And yes, but we are also collecting in Goa, in Pune, and other places in Maharashtra, and we're looking at expanding. Exactly, but I'm happy we had not only technological experts, but also some legal experts today, because our main issues at the moment are not on a technological level, but rather on a legal and regulatory level. So the main issues we're facing right now is in terms of feedstock supply and infrastructural issues. And I think it was mentioned quite a lot of times. Things like bunker storages in ports is one of the issues we are having. Other issues include that the regulations when it comes to UCO, so UCO is still it's not fully implemented, and the topping up of old oil with new oil is still allowed. So those are big obstacles for us, because I think if you want to continue with the decarbonization, but also contribute to the energy independence of India, I think it would be very important to see that the implementation and the regulation of UCO is enforced on a better level. Exactly. So I think that's more or less everything from our side. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them. Yes, exactly. Thank you very much.
Whole circle collection system. That means you go to the customers.
Exactly, yes.
Okay. How much is the collection capacity per day?
So our production capacity is
collection.
The collection. I don't know about the exact collection, but as we say, we produce 1-to-1. So our production capacity is 3,000 tons a year. But we are right now looking to expand this. We're also looking at diversifying of feedstock, because I mean, in terms of technology, we are quite well prepared, and our production capacities in Europe are, and our collection capacities, because we collect also a lot in Eastern Europe, in Hungary, Romania, Slovakia, and so on. There we have much larger capacities, but yes, here we are still dealing with some issues.
I just want to have a thought. In Europe,
yes,
you might rely mostly on refined oils that are used for cooking. As India is going more for cold press. So between these two are different fractions altogether.
Yes.
Do you have some thoughts on which is better for?
We can use both without any problems. Like you're probably talking about oils like mustard oil, or yes, and so on.
Gingerly.
Yes. For us, that poses very little issue, because we can use all of them actually.
Okay.
Yes.
Can I just ask one?
Mhm.
I'm curious
Yes.
about your technology. It is a transesterification or the green diesel it makes? I mean, what's the process you are having?
So I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not an engineer, not from the
Okay.
technical team, but our most efficient technology is transesterification. Yeah, maybe you can.
Yeah, just I wanted to mention this with this because for the transesterification, in the long term, we don't know how much methanol will be available for biodiesel. It might go more for the shipping directly or as a hydrogen carrier. So that's what my question is. So like the Neste and all, I mean, it's more for the they are going to the green diesel. So that's what my question was like to understand the technology.
I just have a question, submission.
Yes.
India produces about, India has a 2 million tons of biodiesel refining capacity. It imports low-grade palm oil from Malaysia and all Indonesia, and supplies it to Europe after refining. Now that's one part, but then you mentioned about the UCOs. Normally in India, we don't have UCOs available in big quantities. So UCOs would not be a very, very relevant ingredient for the biodiesel, but yes, we do import a lot of low-grade palm oil, which is refined in Indian biorefineries and that's supplied to the Europe.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, Patrick, if you want to move on. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
So now we have another project from the Netherlands. Somebody's going to join us online from the Clean Shipping Project. The name doesn't sound very Dutch, though. It's from Shiva Chandrasekaran.
Very much Indian.
Yes, it does indeed. So Shiva, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
please join us. And also tell us who are you and why are you in the Technical University of Delft?
Yes, perfect. Yeah, thanks you. Good afternoon, one and all. I am Sivaramakrishnan Chandrasekaran. I am from Chennai originally. So now I'm a PhD candidate at Delft University of Technology, where I'm working on clean shipping project. Maybe I can quickly share the presentation I have prepared. Just a moment. I think you should be able to see my screen now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So I. Yes. So I belong to the group of Biotechnology and Society at the Faculty of Applied Sciences at Delft University of Technology, where we actually, one of the key areas we focus on are sustainable value chains for large distance biofuels. So as everybody knows that aviation and maritime sectors are really a large emitters, and these are the numbers which are shown by the other colleagues. But according to the research and even the International Energy Agency, biofuels are considered to be more of a midterm to long-term solutions. Earlier, somebody mentioned about the scrubbing systems. They were actually a short-term solution so that enough capacity building can be done at all the places in order to make the transition to much more midterm and long-term solutions. And here, biofuel is very crucial actually to make the transit from fossil-based to renewable-based fuels in aviation and maritime sector. So our focus so far, our experiences, is actually to perform a unifying the integral sustainability aspects. So when we talk about new value chains, it need not be just to satisfy the market demand, but it should also be done in a very sustainable and inclusive manner. And inclusive manner is also very crucial because we are talking about biofuel sector where multiple stakeholders are involved, especially farmers whose livelihoods are also connected. So this comes into place. And how we do that is by a systematic approach. So we start from a micro scale where reactions and equipment level where it becomes more technical until we go to the macro scale where we talk about the whole supply chains and systems, different systems in terms of transport, infrastructure, logistics, policies, so on and so forth. And for this, some of the research directions which we focus on is actually the technological system analysis. That's the first level where we focus a techno-economic analysis and evaluate, okay, is this technology efficient and the economy, is it economically feasible, right? And then after that, we further go on to the other aspects of the sustainability, the environmental and the social aspects. So for that, we do an entire life cycle analysis and a social impact assessment combined with the participatory methods and inclusive design, where we bring in the values, capabilities, capacities, skill sets of the stakeholders into the picture of the design. So in order to make sure that the model is very robust. And so for that, for techno-economic analysis and LCA, we implement different stages like early stage analysis, a detailed simulation and techno-economic analysis, environmental analysis, and finally an integral sustainability and assessment, right? So the first thing is then why we use this. So at the end of the day, we all use this to actually consider different technological and non-technological aspects at the early in the stage to evaluate different supply chains and rank them based on their trade-offs, right? Because no single value chain will be efficient in all different aspects. So we want to identify this. So that's how, that's the goal of our one of the areas of our research group. So one of the examples which we can show is first the aviation sector. In terms of biofuel uptake and development, aviation sector is much more developed than maritime, even in terms of legislations and participation from the private industries. So TU Delft, in our group, we did a project along with NLR, the Dutch Aviation Ministry or the agency, where we, drafted a roadmap for considering different technology feedstocks and the technologies, and we mapped, okay, what are the biomass available in the EU, what are the different technologies, and how much sustainable aviation fuels can be produced along with GHG reduction. So for this, we considered different time scale from 2030 and 2050, even low and high scenario for the market uptake. And in terms of biomass, we looked at, okay, which country, how much biomass is available, what are the type of biomass, is it forestry, is it agriculture, municipal solid waste, and also the competing uses, different level of competing uses, considering or taking into account the multiple different sectors which are parallelly developing, like road or rail, so on and so forth, right? And also considering the different technologies. So yeah, we evaluated them and we identified what is the best pathway, what is the best technological pathway for each of the nations which can meet the demand of this sustainable aviation fuel, while also contributing to 50% of, or 50% and more GHG reduction in terms of it. So this has been done priorly, and we know actually that we gained a lot from this experience. So then we extended this to the maritime sector. So in this project of clean shipping, we actually aim to develop inclusive and sustainable biohub based on a technology called hydrothermal liquefaction, which is also known as wet pyrolysis, to produce marine biofuels. And in this one, it's a multidisciplinary, and then also industries are involved in this project, where we look at 3 different challenges: technological, social, and also sustainability challenge. As you can see here, we have a consortium where we have academia as we are representing them, some of the end users in terms of like Varo, Hilex, some NGOs like Solidaridad to bring in the farmers perspective, and we develop a concept of biohub. This is kind of the interactions which we have, where we focus on the more technical side to understand what are the fuel properties, how good should fuel be, is it a residual fuel or is it a distillate fuel, what should be the oxygen content, moisture content, so on and so forth, more on the lab scale. And then in the middle part, which is more a conceptual design and assessment of the value chains, and also the proof of socially inclusive value chain. And finally, at the end, we have a biohub concept. So, and what is this biohub concept, which I've been repeating myself, is something like this. As you can see, it's a win-win collaboration which we aim at. As you can see in the middle, in the green area, we have multiple communities or multiple farms which generate biomass, right? And this biomass can be harvested in the left to either use it to a central refinery, where it's represented in a black one, or it can be used for a local biomass usage as well for energy or water treatment purpose. And why this has been done? Because one of the key aspects for any biofuel supply chain is transport and economy of scale. Unless until these two are addressed, value chains will not be economically feasible, and it's far from reality. So to benefit that, we have a centralized facility where all this can be processed. And from this refinery, we get majorly 2 fractions, One is the bio oil and the biochar. Bio oil can further be upgraded, as previously mentioned, same as pyrolysis in a port facility or in existing petrochemical infrastructure to shipping fuel. And the biochar can be used back based on its property, either as a fertilizer for soil amendment or as a activated carbon for water treatment or to produce electricity as a coal. And as I know that India is 60% dependent on agriculture, so fertilizer would be really good as well. And most of the crops which we grow are fertilizer intensive crops, right? And in this setup, actually we consider all the stakeholders in place, where the win for the local communities would be sustainable and socio-economic development, and for biofuel producers, it would be secure, continuous supply of high quality feedstock, because that is also something which the current biofuel producers, ask the first question as, what is the supply security? Because we are not dealing with one single location which can produce or which can supply, 1 million tons of fuel, but we are talking about 100 different or 1,000 different small farms or which will be producing biomass. So this has to be addressed. The value chain which should be seen in a different manner. New expertise has to be developed, and we are actually pretty much focusing on the non-edible biomass, such as forestry residues, agri residues, urban and invasive species, just to avoid the food versus feed debate, and also to comply with the universal policies such as RED 2, RED 3, which have already been mentioned. And like I mentioned before, the challenges present in all the three aspects: technical, social, and institutional. So for this, we started off by first selecting different case study. As some of you mentioned, shipping is a global sector. So we have to think of a very broad scenario. So we started off with the whole globe, and then based on some criteria, we filtered it down to 23 countries to 100 plus feedstocks. As you can see, India is also included in that. And then it was further narrowed down to 3 case studies to be performed in this project. Currently, I'm in Namibia. And what's the deal about case study? What do I mean by case study is that we take one specific case study, we understand the local context of a specific feedstock in the region, and we go to that region. And then this is, as it's a multidisciplinary project, I am a chemical engineer looking at the technical side, and I'm also accompanied by another PhD candidate who look at the social aspect. We interview different stakeholders who could be potentially involved in future of this value chain, right? It could be farmers, NGOs, academia, research institutions, ministries, governments, transport sectors, so on and so forth. Where from the non-technical side, we understand their values, capabilities, which translates into their capacity, right? What's the current capacity? And then we tell them the norms and the design propositions for the design requirement for such a value chain. And this will be used, accompanied by from a technical side, where we look at process design, the value chain design, and evaluate them, and evaluate in terms of design requirement. If it is yes, we obtain an inclusive and sustainable design. So for this, we also do it we have developed a specific framework based on our expertise from performing case studies in many countries like Brazil, US, Canada, Malaysia, Indonesia, so on and so forth. So the first, we always look at the early stage techno-economic screening. So this is really focuses on technologies, feedstocks, and the further chemicals which can be co-produced in such a sector. And then we go on into a very detailed design, implementing techno-economic analysis and greenhouse gas emissions, and also understand their minimum fuel selling price with respect to fossil, or also bringing into consideration the additional incentives, if is there any taxes, carbon credits, so on and so forth, and also understand the minimum fuel selling price along with its GHG impacts, and how it can be connected to the land use change, which might be directly or indirectly involved in having such a value chain, and also the effect of the GHG accounting based on different policies. We have different policies, like you have RED 2, you have CORSIA, you have Renova Bio, based on the global analysis, like how this has an effect, and also that what are the different trade-offs. Because once again, I insist on also one of the key experience we learned is no single system or value chain will be efficient or optimized in all the three aspects of sustainability. There should be some trade-off which has to be done, and then that is really necessary. And these are also expected from industry side, especially to establish such a bigger change. They need to understand the whole picture first before making any decisions. Also, for policymakers, this would benefit much more in terms of coming up with a better policies or a robust policies which need not be revisited every once a year or twice a year or so on and so forth. And also we supplement this with social and environmental assessments in terms of looking at the social sustainability, like what is the potential social and governance issues which might come in such a value chain, and in terms of socioeconomic benefits, what would be the employment opportunities or how much it contributes to GDP, so on and so forth, and also how it affects the trade balance of a country, so that we can judge and estimate the dependence and independence ratio of a country over such a resource or a product. And finally, also to understand what could be done in terms of policies which are also involving external variables like a maritime sector, which is global, right? Let's say, for example, today IMO says, the sulfur content has to be reduced. So that's an external variable which has to be implemented into the value chain. And also the different policies has to be taken into consideration along with carbon credits, tax on fossil uses, so on and so forth. So this is something which we actually work on, and we have worked on for the aviation biofuel already, and we aim to continue that for maritime sector. And last but not least, integrating everything, all the three aspects in terms of a multi-criteria, because we have a different criteria, right? So we have to optimize them by including all the stakeholder analysis, including all the perspective of industry, farmers, policymakers, and also the technology producers and providers, right? So integrating everything possessed, brought a much more value addition. And this is something which we actually worked on and has experience in, and would also be a big, in terms of collaboration. And these are all for other for your verifications and reading. Thank you. Any questions?
I have a little question.
Yes.
The quantity of biodiesel
Actually, this need to be done when there are a lot of competing things. So this kind of study should be at the core of for anything, like when we are starting that maritime for biofuel and all. So I think this is one of the best kind of project we should do.
I agree. It's a fantastic example of dealing with the non-technology issues around adoption, especially large-scale adoption. Have you looked at the calls that are coming up? We mentioned upcoming calls on biofuels and biorefineries, etc. Are you guys planning to respond to some of these calls?
Yes, indeed, we are very much interested in that. Like some of the companies which were mentioned earlier, Good Fuels, they are also one of the consortium partners. So we would be very much interested in such collaborations. And one of the reasons why India was not India in a preliminary selection, India was one of the strongest candidate. But because of COVID, we were not able to travel to the field and perform these case studies. That was one of the main reasons why it didn't come out to be one of the three. But we believe India has a very strong potential, and we are looking for and we are interested in such collaborations. Yes.
Great. So I guess we'll be hearing from you again quite soon.
Definitely.
Yeah, actually,
I
we have
another question.
we have the School of Management Director and Dean. They will certainly be willing to collaborate with you in making these case studies, because we do have MBA students in energy and management as well. So they can also be part of such ventures to study the entire program on maritime. And if they can at least concentrate on one or two variables only, then I think they can contribute to the overall understanding. So I would suggest that we introduce you to School of Management. They will be in touch with you, and we'll see what best we can do.
Yeah, definitely. Also, one of the key learnings which we got from this in this project or in this whole learning was that if we take into consideration all the aspect at a very early stage, you would be potentially able to identify what we call as showstoppers, so that your implementation of that would be much more feasible and much closer to reality, rather than taking all the projects to pilot or demonstration scale, and then you end up with issues with environmental policy or social acceptance and things like that. So this is one of the key learning which we also learned over multiple projects from our experience.
Thanks, Eva. We're going to have to move on now. Our last speaker is Dr. Saeed Shamshazdani from a very interesting organization, the International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology, which is part of an international network supported by the United Nations. And so they have a center in Trieste in Italy. They're here in Delhi, and also they have a center in South Africa. But anyway, Shams, maybe you'll tell us a little bit about the organization before you jump into your work.
I'll do that. So thank you very much, you, and thank you very much, PDU, for hosting this. It's a great opportunity to introduce my institute as well as myself. So just go to the next slide. So basically, I'm from ICGB, International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology. So as you can see, there are 80 plus member countries of ICGB. There are 3 laboratories, we call it as a components of ICGB. Headquarters is in Italy, Trieste, and we have one in the ICGB New Delhi. And the other one, which is much more newer, is in the Cape Town, South Africa. It's almost 35 years now, the establishment of ICGB. Can you go to the next slide, please? And of course, it started as a unique, UNIDO project, as an international UNIDO project, which Italy and India joined hand to majorly give training to this very, very upcoming field at that time, genetic engineering and biotechnology 35 years ago, into the developing nations. So most of the countries which are partnering ICGB are basically developing countries, so that they are not far away from this newer technologies that were coming up at those time. And then later on, Cape Town also joined hand. So obviously ICGB mandate is research training, technology development and transfer in the area of life sciences. So very, very translational work that we do. And of course, being a mandate of ICGB, headquarter being Italy, component in India. So with the EU-India partnership, ICGB becomes really an important place, I would say. Also, interestingly, we heard from the Keys Quant. So ICGB also hosts the Mission Innovation Secretariat. So a lot of inputs that came up through DBT to mission innovation also is contributed by ICGB. So this mission by refineries, which Keys Quant represented, was also one of them. Next slide, please. So the theme area, which obviously all the components of ICGB being supported by the individual government majorly, with the part of the support coming from the member countries. So we'll look after the local problems majorly. So ICGB New Delhi try to look at the issues that are relevant to India and other developing countries. And majorly there are 3 regions or 3 zones of the research: the infectious disease, which is one of the major one. And then we have a agricultural part, which is also one of the key aspects. And the bioenergy is actually started almost 10 years back, when Department of Biotechnology, Government of India decided to fund a spatial center. So they have given a spatial, funding in ICGB to support 2nd, 3rd, and 4th generation biofuels. And especially in the context of genetic engineering and biotechnology. So those were the dimensions that India thought was missing in the overall biofuel zone. And that is where we took a lead. And I'll show you some of the updates that has happened here. So of course, the biomass we spoke, in fact, we had about a month back, a very public event in Rome, we call it as a science center city, where we call upon a local public to tell about the usage of the biofuel. We call them as a biomass fueling the future. So this is really a a very, very relevant event that we are talking about even today. We truly believe that biomass is going to be fueling the new future. And in fact, a lot of questions that were coming that how we will achieve 20% blending and all that. So I think these are something that could be addressed with the right usage of the biomass. We have a huge surplus of biomass which are being wasted at this moment. They are being burned. And of course, we need to take care of it. UN is also concerned about it, and we need to valorize them. Next, please. So, of course, again, in the Indian context, we are saying that beyond 10% blending, we need to move beyond first generation biofuel. So these molasses and the grain waste that has been used so far for making first generation biofuel is not going to make further, contribution moving from 10% to 20%. So we need to move to the next one, which is a second generation biofuel, or the third and fourth. Next, please. So this is really a very brief flow diagram to give you how the second generation biofuel technology is going to work. It's basically a biomass is composed of lignin, hemicellulose, and cellulose. And mostly these structural polymers, especially the cellulose and hemicellulose, they are sugar polymers. And we need to extract sugar out of it. If we are successfully able to extract sugar, then we can convert it into anything. I mean, the sugar is sugar. As we can ferment it to drink beer, we can also ferment it to any other fuel molecule, as well as, drop-in fuels. I'll talk about it. But there are challenges, and government is supporting a lot in addressing these challenges in terms of the viable gap funding, tax incentive. There are 4 commercial plant, not really pilot plant, commercial plant at 10,000 kilo per day of ethanol capacity has already been sanctioned, and hearing that they will be functional by next year. So the 4 of those plants, and Panipat plant has already been inaugurated by Honorable Prime Minister. So 2 of them coming from Indian Oil Corporation, 1 of them coming from Bharat Petroleum, another one is coming from the Hindustan Petroleum. So those 4 plants are going to, kind of address or, add to these percentage of fuel we are talking about in terms of blending. We are hoping that it will move from 10% to 15% or even 20%. The government actually has a plan to make 12 of those commercial plants. If those 4 give success, then we'll move further to make it from 4 to the 12th plant. But there are challenges, of course, the government is supporting at this moment, but every steps are challenging. And of course, if we want to make everything commercially viable, we need to got over the challenges. And one of the key challenges are enzymes. So these are a biological process where enzymes are needed to convert those polymer of sugar into monomer. And every plant will need around 4 to 6 tons of enzymes per day in those commercial plants. And of course, those are huge number of amount of enzymes that we are going to import for these plants. And we are trying very hard to make an indigenous technology which are cost competitive and efficient. This is one of the key things that we work. We also work on the other aspects like converting all the sugars that are present in the biomass C5, C6 sugar into ethanol, because normal yeast will not be able to ferment. And then in addition to ethanol, when you're fermenting, there are other drop-in fuels which are much more denser that can also be made, like hydrocarbon, alkane, long-chain alcohols. So next, please. So with the support of government, we have a very good infrastructure, robotic system for screening, a lot of natural isolates that can give us good enzymes. We also have a state-of-the-art mass spec facility that we can analyze that what are the kind of those biological materials that are produced by those fungus, so that we can generate IPs. Next, please. So we go deeper into understanding of composition of those biological enzymes that are produced by these fungus so that we can improvise them further. Go to the next, and just going fast so that we can save time. So eventually what happens that, those fungi that we screen, they will have a limitation of production in terms of what we want. They may be producing best, but basically we want them to produce even more because the cost is a major thing. More enzymes we produce, the more cost we save. So what we do is we do genomics, transcriptomics, proteomics. So these are basically some of the key advanced next generation sequencing technologies that we can do to understand the genetics and physiology of this fungi that we screen. And then we try to tinker with their genome so that we can, overcome the limitations that they may have. For example, after a certain time, they will stop producing enzymes because there are repressors there. So there are sensors which will tell them that now you don't have to produce enzymes, there are enough of them. So we delete those repressors. There are enhancers that, in presence of those polymers, they increase the amount of enzyme production. So we increase those enhancers expression. There are some of the key enzymes that are very good in hydrolyzing the crystalline biomass, for example, cellobiohydrolase, LPMO, monooxygenases. We try to add more copies of them. So we slowly do these genomics tinkering and we increase the titer of enzymes. Go to the next slide, please.
Is this a batch process?
So there's both batch and the fed batch. So when we finally come to, I'll show you this. So what was important was that not only we produce more enzymes, but we also show that this enzyme hydrolyzes the biomass in an equivalent capacity to our competitors. So at this moment, more or less, these enzyme market is dominated by Novozyme enzymes. So we have a CTEC3HS, which is the most latest enzymes from Novozyme. So we have some of the companies that can help us to compare these our enzymes with the Novozymes. So you can see that, to achieve the same kind of biomass hydrolysis, our enzymes, the amount needed is almost equivalent. So they are very, very competitive in terms of efficiency as compared to other enzymes, which are really lesser or you need much more. So, lesser enzymes, you need to hydrolyze the biomass, you save more cost. So because of this cost efficiency, government helped us to scale up our technology. So we have scaled up in an industry to 15,000 liters scale. And next, please. We have done some techno-economic analysis with the help of IIT Bombay. So they are chemical engineers as well as expert in this area. So they give us a hint that the cost of production of our enzymes are very, at this moment, no cost, no profit, but at least we are not in loss when we talk about the cost of production. So that is at least very encouraging, as somebody said, that we need to move on, we need to keep going, and maybe improvisation can happen in the future. Go to the next slide. So in that context, we keep on filing IPs as well. So some of these enzyme technology has been granted the US patent as well. So this is just to show you this. What is hiding behind is the US patent name. Go ahead. So now we are at a stage where we are inviting commercial partners to come on board so that we can produce these enzymes indigenously and make it available to the 2G ethanol plant. Next, please. So this is also important, as I said, that once you have a sugar, a very, very cost effectively produced sugar, you can ferment it to anything if you have a technology to produce. So for example, in addition to ethanol, we have a pathway engineering done in the microbe where we have imported some of the enzymes from cyanobacteria. So some of the key enzymes are there that can produce alkane in cyanobacteria. So we import it in the lab bacteria, and we can show that the lab bacteria can produce alkane around C15, C17 chain alkane, which is basically a drop in fuel to a very large quantity, although still not enough titer that can be called cost effective, but we are working on it. But these are some of the we can call it as a fourth generation biofuels or future biofuels or advanced biofuels that are going to come into domain as a next step. Next, please. So these are our team members and a good funding from Government of India as well as some of the public sector companies. Next, please. So thank you very much. That's what I wanted to
How do you see the handling aspects, especially when it comes to fungi? Those are case sensitive compared to even the other microorganisms.
Yeah, so in fact, the handling about fungi is very interesting because we have been producing antibiotics from the centuries. So people are in the companies, they are quite well aware of how to handle the fungi. With us, it's a little bit one step further because these are genetically modified fungi. And but government, because these are BSL1, we call it biosafety level 1, they are not having any problem or issues with the human health. There are less regulatory hurdles to scale it up. But still, we need a contained area where we can go to for example, the company where we scaled up to 15,000 liters scale, they had a contained area. So we produce them. But scaling up with the fungi, I would say India is very good in that. In fact, I was surprised when I spoke to industries and all that. So we have capacity to scale it up and handle the fungal spores and fungal organisms.
Yeah, but is it that safe to handle it in a BSL1 environment?
It is safe. Organism itself is safe, so
Okay.
there's no problem in handling it.
Okay.
Because we are not producing any toxic material, it's a simple biological materials that are enzymes for hydrolyzing biomass.
Yeah.
So can I ask a question?
Yes.
Yes, we'll just open up for question and answer, or everyone
have
asking a
an important
question, please
question.
introduce yourself
Yeah.
and your organization and keep your questions and comments short, please. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Dr. Sharma. I'm an energy expert. I just wanted, you mentioned about the use of enzymes in producing second generation biofuels. Now you mentioned that 4 to 6 tons per day of enzymes you require to produce 10 KLPD of second generation biofuels. Now the enzyme costs being very high and the second generation biofuels are not really coming up to the level of scale of economies. What's your assessment and what's your suggestion that how really we should make second generation biofuels economical with first generation biofuels which are produced from molasses?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. Very important question. So those numbers actually are generated by EIL, so Energy India Limited. So I took that number, which made a very detailed assessment about second generation biofuels. So they said that every biofuel plant, whatever technology you take, which are available at this moment, you will need 4 to 6 tons per day of enzyme. Now, of course, as I said, at this moment, the technology is driven with the support of government. There is a viable gap funding, the tax incentive and all that. There is a lot of capital funding which is going from the government side, which will ensure that ethanol is produced via those technology. But of course, to ensure that also these technologies are coming at part of first generation, we really need much more. So we need to improve the efficiency of those enzymes so that they are needed even in 1/3 or 1/4. And those are the topics that we are working on. These are ongoing things. So these improvements will have to be continued, can't be let out. Thank you.
By when do you think that you would come down to 1/3 of enzyme usages?
I think another 3-4 years, because these modern technologies would allow the enzyme efficiency to improve and the cost to come down.
Yeah, thank you. Do we have any more questions? Yes, please, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, thank you. I would like to thank you all for inviting us. I'm representing a company called Biofuels Circle. We are India's first digital platform for this bioenergy sector. These issues which we are discussing from the beginning of the session, from how to connect from the farmers to processor to transporters to financer to consumer end user. So all the stakeholders we are getting and onboarding them on our platforms, and we are organizing on that. So one offering, one thing which I can contribute to this forum is that we can collaborate with like you and you, anybody. So currently all the leading corporates, they are all in our platforms, including NTPC. We are looking forward to the shipping marine industries also to help them to organize this platform. Second, sir, for the PDEU, we are also working with a lot of farmer organizations, specifically in Gujarat also, more than 200 FPOs we are working on. So if your students want to have a rural touch and to internship, so we can be a part to that. Absolutely. So that is that. I have no questions for that. It was a very useful technical sessions. Thank you very much.
No, thank you that's a very important comment. And of course, we've heard about you and good to meet you in person as well. Yeah.
I have a small question out of curiosity. This might be silly. So please pardon me if that is the case. But when we say blending percentage, so we always quote a single figure. I belong to mechanical engineering, and I know that applications are different for different cases. I mean, it may be used in IC engines, internal combustion. It may be used as an open heat source, like in turbines for marine and aircraft applications. Should not it be two figures? This for IC engines where viscosity is a culprit, and other for open heating applications like marine and aircrafts.
Classification.
So we always say 15% blending. We have achieved 20% blending, but it should differ case to case, to my understanding. I don't know.
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
You see, it's basically different blending has a different thermal value percentages. If you make it 20% blending, your thermal value goes down by about 5 to 6%. So for different applications like aviation fuel, the marine fuel where you need much higher energy, you really can't have that kind of blend. Yes, you could go up to the 5% blend for some of these applications because it acts as an oxygenate. So that's where when you need a higher capacity engines, you can't have a much bigger blend. Where like in transport sector, you have to design engines or IC engines accordingly for a different kind of blends. Like you have EBP 85 also in Brazil, where you have a different kind of engine, and you have a EBP 15 also in USA. So engine designs are to be different for different efficiencies of fuel and different, say, engine efficiencies also. So it's basically a matter of thermal value at different blend levels.
Yeah, that's right. It depends on calorific value rather.
That's right.
So maybe because of that, governments are more keen to apply it for aviation and marine applications, because those turbines, those engines are more friendly to this biodiesel, biofuel.
Yeah, the thermal value of petrol or MS is just 11,800 kcal, while ethanol, it is 6,400 kcal.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Another point I would just like to add that when we say blending, the point is that in India, the consumption of petrol is 3 times as compared to diesel. Earlier, it was even bigger. 5% blending of diesel, the total biodiesel requirement is almost equal to 15% of ethanol. Quantity-wise, both are same, 15% ethanol and blending or 5% diesel. The total quantity, because 3 times diesel is consumed more. So blending, though the program wise it is less, but quantity wise almost both are same.
We should be able to produce that level of biodiesel. We have been trying it for last 20 years, but the DROPA based has not been able to work.
Besides this, I would just like to ask a question that when we, the technology which I mentioned regarding this ethanol, how much is this liquid discharge waste is generated through this one? I heard that around, say, for 1 liter of ethanol production, there is at least 10 liters of, the liquid waste discharge is generated. I would like to know the comment.
You're right, actually, because the maximum you expect is 10% of ethanol. So 90% is the other things that needs to be recycled. But I think it needs to be recycled. I mean, no waste can be discharged. This is the principle of the government.
That is a big issue.
Yeah.
You could produce bio-CNG from that discharge also.
Correct. There are a few things that government are thinking. One is that, the lignin. So there's a lot of opportunity to valorize the lignin. Those are something that governments are looking for technologies. At this moment, they are being burnt. And the biomass that are being generated during fermentation, they are mostly yeast. So you can use it for the animal feed or something. And rest of the water can be recycled. So what you try to do is a minimal waste that gets generated.
We have another question at the back. Yeah.
Question is, Mr. Matthew, is there any regulation for UCA in Austria and whether it is implemented?
Yes, of course. So basically, you're only allowed if you're on a commercial basis, if you're a restaurant or a hotel, the oil has to be changed on a daily basis, which is because there's a maximum level of 25% of TPC, which is total polar compounds, which is the maximum level of oil, which is the maximum level that is allowed. Actually, in India, it is the same. There's also this rule of 25% TPC, but it's more the issue of the enforcement. Right. So legislation is actually not that bad. And there used to be around before the pandemic, before the COVID pandemic, it was actually also restricted to top up old oil with new oil. But this rule was implemented and then taken out again for I don't know what reason. But the major issue is actually the implementation of the regulation. And I'm not only talking about the small street vendors that are frying samosas, but we conducted research on this, and we're also talking about big, large hotel chains or fast food chains that are very well known that do not respect this regulation, keep on using the oil. Some people say it gives the special taste to some burgers. It's a special ingredient, but we are not sure about it because it's one of the main reasons of cardiovascular diseases, which is among men in India, one of the leading causes of death. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Because of samosas. The pattern is, by the time it is rejected, it's almost the fourth version of it, or fifth version. So that's where the whole thing comes. That's why I was just asking, on the first usage you discard versus the fifth usage, what is the parity that we see in the final extraction, the convertibility? These are big questions because nobody is honest to say, okay, I used it first time, I'm giving it to you. It goes through many versions, and then when you finally collect it, it's a big mess. You don't know where you start and where you end. So
yes, absolutely. That's why we have a lengthy filter.
Yeah. How do you go about this? This itself is a social entrepreneurship in one sense.
Yeah, I mean, we are leading awareness raising campaigns. We're actually about to start one. And in Bangladesh, we have started this a longer time ago. But we are trying to raise awareness about these issues because, for instance, you don't have to. I mean, we have our own testing kits as well that we developed that are very cheap for businesses to use. But actually, we are also just telling people you don't need a laboratory to test it. Like just by looking at it, by smelling it, you will know if it's fresh oil or old oil. I mean, if you look at the samosa street vendor, you will see just with your eyes that this oil is not fresh oil, right? And yeah, that's an issue. Yeah. It's obviously more difficult in a hotel where you don't see the kitchen, right? That's more difficult, but with street vendors, yeah, it's more obvious. Yeah. But also, just to come back to your question, in Austria, it's also less the issue that because here there's a strong black market with also street vendors that are buying it from hotels and restaurants. You have less this culture of street vendors in Austria, so it's a different market, right? It's also the food is less fried, so there's less oil. So there's a lot of different things, but the main difference is the enforcement of the regulations. Yeah.
And collection is through organized sector. What you collect from UCA, organized way of collecting. How do you
Yes. Yeah. I mean, what do you mean by organized?
you like with five-star hotel, you have a pact and then
Yes.
one you will pay something like that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But we are also, for instance, in Europe, we are also collecting in certain parts from households where people can drop off their oil. We're also about to start this in Kenya. So people can collect the oil at home we give out special containers, people can collect it. They can drop off the oil and they get like some reward for it.
Collection centers, some collection.
Yes, like collection points where people can drop it off. In India, we have not started household collection yet, but these are hopefully things.
They don't give you. Before that, there is no reference.
Yes.
See, actually, as per India regulation, the big hotel should supply the used oil to FSSI registered vendors who's authorized to collect the used oil, and that should be recycled. But here we are not following. That's the problem. Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, FSI had given the registered vendors who can collect the oil from the hotels and the use
at rupees 30 per liter.
Yeah, that's I'm not sure about that rates, but there is a regulation, but it's not.
The price is also decided by government.
Yeah, correct.
It's called the RUCO, I think, repurposed used cooking oil, but people are not following.
Yeah, that's correct.
This discussion is getting more and more interesting, and probably the best venue to continue it would be at dinner. I'm very happy, to say that, the EU would like to invite all of you for dinner, which is actually, again, organized by PDEU at their international cafeteria. But it would be great if we could continue this conversation over dinner. So, I mean, it's just my polite way of saying we need to wrap up, and because, we need to be on time. We also have an online audience. And I thank you all really very much. It's been a fantastic learning also for me. For listening to all of you around the table, your views are invaluable, and it's all going to contribute to this world becoming a much better place to live in. So thank you so much. So just before we leave, I just want to make a special thanks to our host today, Dr. S. Sundar Manoharan, the DG of PDEU. I think your hospitality has been, has blown my mind away. Really, thank you for the venue and all of the, logistics support you've given us. This would not have been possible, for us to do in a place like Gandhinagar and Gujarat, bringing all the stakeholders together. So thank you very much. We just want to present to you a small memento of our appreciation. Yeah, if do you mind? Yeah, sorry. This way. Okay. Thanks for the direction. Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, please. Thank you. We also have, people who have joined us, Mr. Pandit Singh. Thank you so much. Dr. Piyali Das. Yes. So nice to meet you. Thank you all, and I, especially wanted to thank Shiji. Is she here? Shiji actually has been coordinating this program for us. She's inside, yeah. Mr. Kachua? Yeah. There are a lot of people who actually were behind the scenes. Still unadmitted. Dr. Praveen Kotikere. So much. Of course, I would definitely want to recognize Shiji. She was, she has been so instrumental in putting all of this together. Often it's the people behind the scenes who really make all of this possible. Thank you so much. Yeah. And I have to appreciate my own colleague Senthil here, who's here and who's been quietly working, I think, for the last couple of months to bring this all together. And the team at the back, we have, behind the scenes, we have Harsha and Vartika online. Thank you so much for, for coordinating all of this.
Thank you so much. So, the last session was about cooking oil, so don't worry, we have a good dinner, right? We hope we'll be able to continue the discussion there. The EU team is here tomorrow also. So in case you're staying back, you can connect with the EU team here at PDEU, because there will be some facility inspection on some of the renewable energy installations that we have. The 1 megawatt solar farm, the Maruti Suzuki International Center for Automation, then our production line for photovoltaics that's coming up, energy storage, then biofuels here. We also have other exclusive installations on additive manufacturing for metal 3D. So there's a lot more on the peripheral issues governing renewable energy. So we invite all of you to hang out. In case you have time only today, we can give a quick tour between 5:30 to 6 or even 5:45 to 6:15, so that if you're leaving today, you won't miss out. Otherwise, please stay back. If you want to refresh yourself, please let us know. We will try to arrange within the campus so that you can get ready for the dinner. Thank you. And once again, I want to thank Ms. Lena Thomas and Mr. Sendel for that wonderful conversations that we had. And special thanks to Mr. Singh, because I didn't personally meet him, but he took time to come. Dr. Shanta Kumar and especially the GMU, they are not sad being here. They're very happy. 2 weeks they were in Europe. They just landed. Perhaps they have jet lag, but I'm sure they are enjoying the conversation. So we request the GNLU and GMU faculty to stay back for dinner and then go. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Can we request for a group photograph?
Yes, yes.
Just, I think everybody in the room, please join us.
I'd like to thank all the online speakers for joining us today. Thank you so much. I think we've concluded the session, and we'll be sharing the presentations and everything shortly. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone.